Okay, it's now 7 o'clock. We'd like to call the December 15th, 2025 Planning Board meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If y'all please stand with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is the invocation. If you all please bow with me, I'll give us a prayer. Dear Lord, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come together here tonight and meet on behalf of the town. We'd like to ask for your blessing over this meeting, and we'd like to ask for your guidance and direction in the decisions we make tonight. For us in your name we pray. Amen. All right. Item number 3 is the approval of the October 27th, 2025 meeting minutes. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review those. If there are no corrections, the floor will be open for motion.
I move that we adopt the October 27, 2025 meeting minutes.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, on to the regular agenda item. And before we get started, I would like to read the Planning Board's public comment statement. If there are individuals wishing to speak tonight regarding these matters before the board, to avoid repetition, groups are asked to designate a spokesman. If you have not done so already, please provide your information on the form at the podium before speaking. Please state your name, address for the minutes. Individuals will be limited to 3 minutes to speak. A staff member will notify you when your time has expired. Thank you. And first item agenda is the rezoning 25-03. And
yes, apologies. We're making sure that all the mics are hot.
okay.
Working. Y'all could double check your mics. Okay. All right, thank you. Yes.
All right.
Sorry for that interruption.
Not a problem. And this first item on the agenda, I will need to recuse myself as my firm is working on this project. So we'll turn it over to Mr. Lawrence and I'll step aside.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we have first item, REZ-25-03. We'll go and turn it over to planning staff.
Yes, thank you. Mike Ellebarger, the interim planning director. I'll be doing the presentations this evening. Item B1 on the agenda is REZ-2503 for property addressed at 625 Averett Road. Quick reminder that this case was brought forward at the October 27th planning board meeting. It was decided by the board to continue it to a later date when the applicant could be in attendance. The applicant is here this evening. We'll be doing a presentation, answering questions. So we will kind of reintroduce this case to the planning board and get through. Quick recap here about the subject property, the address 625 Averett. The subject rezoning is a portion of a tract being 12.283 acres. It is currently zoned a combination of the residential and planned unit development, R and PUD, which is a harbinger to the old Unified Development Ordinance that the town had. The proposed zoning is to a residential high conditional zoning district. I apologize, that acronym is incorrect. It should be RHCZ. The proposed use with this rezoning project is a single family attached or townhome housing community. There was a previous case for this property. This goes back a long ways to circa 2007. There was a very large conceptual project known as Averett Farms then. It spanned from Jones Dairy Road all the way up to Highway 98 or Waite Avenue. All of the colored areas there were subject to that project at that time. Our subject property this evening is right here in this lower area. This large project had 2 non-residential or commercial areas identified, one right here, and then this area here. Essentially, most of these lands have been developed through other subdivisions and other subsequent rezonings by the town. And this is one of those last few remaining pieces of this master plan project that never came to fruition, circa 2007, 2008. So back to the image here, which is their concept plan proposed. This conditional zoning project has 3 conditions. One is general compliance with the concept plan shown on the screen and included in the packet. A commitment to a maximum residential density of no more than 5.9 units per acre. And then a parkland dedication of a minimum 2 acres. And that area, as we'll see on some subsequent drawings, is up in this, on this drawing, the upper right-hand corner. Looking at the comprehensive plan and the future land use map, our subject property lies, right here, near the intersection of Jones Dairy Road and Averett Road. It is called out as a mixed residential community. That category is primarily residential, but it does facilitate or promote some non-residential components when aspects such as road frontage or corners. The Comprehensive Transportation Plan, or Community Transportation Plan, or CTP, calls for this property to front near the Jones Dairy and the Averett Road. Our project is right about here. Averett Road and Jones Dairy are called for being 4-lane divided roadways, both with narrow raised medians, curb and gutter, bicycle lanes, and sidewalks. They both have an ultimate cross section of 110 feet of right of way, so they're essentially identical road cross sections. The 2022 Greenway and bicycle plans also have recommendations affecting this property. Bicycle lanes and side path are required along Averett Road, and Jones Dairy Road side path would be required. Regarding traffic, the applicant did a trip generation study based on their proposed numbers of dwelling units. It came in just under the threshold of 500 daily trips or 50 AM or PM peak hours. So this project did not trigger or require, under the LDO, a traffic impact analysis or traffic study. Regarding comprehensive plan consistency, the attached housing product is consistent with what is described in that mixed residential community district. The CTP thoroughfare requirements for Averett Road and Jones Dairy Road will be provided as required along their frontages, which here on Jones Dairy and here on Averett Road, those will come into play at the time of preliminary subdivision, which would be subsequent, which would be the next step should the rezoning be approved. Those right-of-way dedications would be dictated, and then through construction drawings, the improvements for the road frontages on those 2 roads would be planned and designed. The Greenway and bicycle plan requirements are being shown through callouts like here and here as being compliance. And again, those types of infrastructure improvements would be identified at preliminary subdivision and construction drawing points. The overall staff recommendation is that the 2050 comprehensive plan finds that the proposed project would be generally consistent. The 5.9 units per acre is compliant with the RH zoning district. If anything, it's on the lower end for attached dwelling units. I believe it calls for a maximum density of 9. So at 6, it's a little on the lower end of that density requirement. So it's generally consistent with the future land use plan for residential, though it does not have a commercial or non-residential component, and the density is consistent with the proposed RH zoning district. The board shall make a recommendation to the Town Board of Commissioners of approval or denial, and also provide some examples of consistency or inconsistency based on whatever that recommendation is. So when we get to that point. That concludes the staff report. The applicant is here, should the board wish to hear their presentation.
Okay. Would the board like to hear from the applicant? Yes.
I will turn off and you can.
Good evening, Planning Board. Thank you for being here tonight and helping us out with this. I just wanted to start by saying that there was some confusion last time on the 27th of October. So the invitation was not clear, and we apologize for not being here. So just as a matter of fact, before we get started, I want to let you guys know that we would obviously be here and have every intention of supporting the project. That being said, I put together a quick presentation today, namely addressing some of the concerns that were brought up last time, hoping to address those this time preemptively. So just, Mike did a great job. There wasn't a whole lot of to work with the presentation. Here's just a general breakdown of the presentation concept for the site. So 72 single-family attached homes. In addition to the legacy zoning, we believe that this zoning solves a lot of the issues. The legacy zoning was commercial and mixed use, but given the watershed proximity to the front of the site, it's not an option to do commercial. So one of the best paths for us was to come back through and rezone the project into medium density. The only zoning that allows for townhomes to get medium density is actually the RH category or the high density zoning. So, Mr. Verstegen, I know you had mentioned last time, and I watched the YouTube video a couple times just to make sure I understood your concern. I wanted to try to bring a diagram to help better explain some of the reasoning for where our amenities are. So if I can, sometimes it's hard to see the north diagram on here, so I labeled north, south, east, and west. The town had actually asked us to dedicate some park space. I believe it was Eddie, he had requested some park space in the northwest corner of the site initially. So we kind of started off there as just a starting point. This site is very challenging because the water, in order to be compliant with the watershed, has to drain to the south, kind of southwest area. As such, any point that is developed that's further away from that area, you have to get elevation on. So the lay of the land works against that natural draining. And so when we engaged McKim and Creed on the design, the site plan layout, we had to limit the development to the north specifically because the drainage has to go south. And so if you can imagine kind of a slope, anything that's further away from the drainage point has to be higher up in the air. And we really didn't want to create a plateau on the north side in order to drain water down. So that's kind of some of the rationale for why the park went in the northwest corner, in addition to it being requested there. I'm happy to answer more questions on it, but that's kind of the biggest reason why the park exists in that corner. I believe the second point of concern was around the SCM. So the SCM location, given that same storm drainage constraint, we have to place the SCM in a location where we minimize the grade change on the overall site. So this location being central and to the north allows us to minimize the needed increased grade when we go through our construction drawing process. Let's see. I believe I hit all the points. I hope that helps, but I'm here to answer questions also. So I just wanted to be sure and address the question from the previous.
Can I go ahead and
meeting.
chime in on that?
Please,
last
yes, sir.
Point? So that's going to be one of your higher points then? Because the storm drain pond usually is a lower point because everything's draining down into that pond, which is then designed to perforate into the ground below that. So that seems odd that it's in the northeastern corner when you have to drain down to the southwest. It would seem the storm management pond would be down on that roundabout because of where the flow that you're describing should be going in.
I don't mean to cut you off. The stormwater pond detains the water, and it allows for the impervious water that is leaving the site to be managed in a way where it doesn't exceed the existing conditions of sheet flow of water off the site. And so the pond acts as just a detention measure, and there's actually a pipe that runs out of the pond and exits the site. So that we're still making that entire run from the pond to the south with pipe. So it being placed there allows the single family attached homes to drain into the pond and more effectively collect water per unit of length away from the pond. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but that's the way my engineers explained it to me. So we're essentially minimizing the amount of grade change on the site by placing the pond towards the northernmost section of development.
Are you digging below the current level, the current grade in order to create that pond? Is that how you're accomplishing the depth that's required in order to capture all the impervious water that will come from the streets and homes? Because again, from a flow perspective, it seems odd that you're suggesting you have to build up to drain to the southwest but then all the drains in the streets and the houses are gonna drain into the pond, into the northeast, just so all that can be drained out underneath everything. So that's why, to me, it seems kind of odd that there's this explanation that the grading has to be changed because everything's got to grade to the southwest, but yet your retention pond's in the northeast in the complete opposite direction, which sends to me the kind of indication that you have flexibility on where you can do things based on what you're doing, because your pond is in the complete opposite corner of where your drain field needs to be. So that's why that kind of explanation makes me really question, you know, what really has to happen as opposed because of the layout of the property.
Yes, sir. Well, I can just say that I feel convicted on it because we have gone through in the 6+ months of TRC review, different layouts. And I've personally sat with the engineer, and this is a very challenging site, and we have looked at different road placement, different attached family home placement, different SCM placement. And we went through at this point, it's a theoretical exercise because we haven't gone through the CD process yet. But this, based on the diagrams that we've exchanged, is the best way to optimize to not have to build up the grade on the site. And I probably can't do a better job explaining it than that.
That's fair. I mean, I get it. You got to get the maximum number of houses in the property, and this gives you the maximum number of houses in the property. There are other alternatives that are possible, but this one gives you the maximum number of units, which maximizes your profit, which is what all business is all about. So I get it. There are other options out there, but this is the one that maximizes your outline. So that's fair enough. I can accept the answer.
Well, and thank you. And I would just, unfortunately, without having the calculations, and they're not done also. And you know, it's always tough at this part of the process because we're bringing a site concept where we've, you know, paid to have an engineering firm go through and say, hey, what's possible? What can you do here? How best to optimize it? But we've also been around doing this long enough. We know things are going to change in the CD process. And so all we can do is kind of give a best effort for where we think it's going to land now.
Yeah, I get it. I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate it.
And just the last point, I wanted to kind of go over the dedication. I think I know some of the comments were around the location and not being kind of cordoned off. We are happy to dedicate this land, these 2 acres, and we do think it's going to be a benefit to the site. And I think that while the location may not be optimized from every aspect, we do believe it's an important thing to have. And we've seen other pocket parks in nearby communities that work well that are within subdivisions. Yes. Okay. Well, the right next door in Presley, they're putting a hammock park, a pollinator park, and I don't know if they're dedicated as open space. I don't know if there's limitations on the public going there, but I'm assuming that they're allowed to attend. Maybe I'm wrong on that, Mike, but they're private roads.
There's a distinct difference between town-owned parkland and private open space.
Okay, so apologize for the lack of distinction there, but I think it's a great thing. And again, it may not be optimized, but 2 acres is a good chunk of land. So we hope that the town can make plans and have plans for improvement of that space. And just I think the rest of this is housekeeping. I just wanted to note that, you know, we believe that this plan complies with all of the plans, as Mike already mentioned, so we don't need to go through all of that. And just another point on the density being 5.9 units per acre. This is very consistent with neighboring developments. We feel it's very appropriate in the nearby communities. That's all I had. Any questions?
I mean, I can keep going with this. I mean, when you have this piece of property, is there a parking lot that's available? Is it all of this 2 acres having to remain impervious because it's still in the Little Creek watershed? Because if it is, then there's no parking for public people to come in there. You've got public people coming into a private community to get to a public park, which is something that we have been trying not to do for years here. I understand there's nothing that necessarily says that on the books, but there's no way the public can access this park other than going into a private community.
I know the fact, because I live in a private community, and this has again been something that's been pretty standard across the board. It's not been a standard practice to have a park tucked away in the back where you have to drive through a private community to get to it, okay? And there's no greenway here, at least from the images that tell you have access to this. I don't know what's on the west or the north of this to know if it's a park that can be joined with another park that's already designated in a way that's for public access, because then I could see the town being able to use it. I don't know how much of this is pervious or impervious, like I said, to the watershed. So it looks good on paper, but it doesn't look good on paper. You know what I mean? It's like, what can we do with this land? What is the town going to be able to do? Because if it's in the Little River watershed, then we can't make anything pervious or impervious on there. So that means we can't put a parking lot, no matter how big or small. We can't put, a path. We can't put a tennis court. We can't put anything on it if it's just, if it's part of that watershed. So I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love parks. Everybody knows I love parks, which is why I try to find a way to move it into an area that makes it more accessible and more usable and more friendly and more, and I gave all those drawings. I talked about it. So if we can't use it, I don't know. I just think I think you can do better. I think there's another opportunity to put houses to the right of the ones you see in this little cutout, and take the houses down on the right when you come into the building, into the community, and move the park into that area where you have the stormwater management system. If that was where you put the park, you put homes up here and move your SCM out into this area, I think there's room to do it. You might, with the drawing I sent out, you lose one house, maybe two, by moving things around, making the park accessible directly from Abbott Road without going into a community, have a good greenway that can come off of Abbott Road directly to the park, not going through a community and crossing driveways and getting in everybody's way. It's just a mix of public and private that just doesn't fit well for me. And that's why I've been saying this for all the time I've been on these boards about how these pocket parks don't really work well in reality.
Yeah, and I can definitely appreciate that position. I think from our standpoint, given that we've put so much time into trying to find, I won't call it the only layout that works, but I'll call it one that I feel fairly confident is one of a very small few that will work. Mainly the constraint being just the northwest area and the central SCM. I feel really strongly that we've vetted the viability, and I can appreciate your position, absolutely.
No, and that's fair, and that all becomes part of a next step anyway. This is just a zoning case, so
Yes, sir.
it's technically irrelevant to what we're here for tonight. So that's why I'll just zip it and we can move on.
Okay.
Just for the board's consideration, on these dedications, on the legal side, we think of them as offers of dedication. The town is not obligated to take these open spaces. So if the town does not elect to accept the offer of dedication, it is just open space.
Yeah, for the community, and then to be in a private HOA.
Or woods. Some of them are activated and some are not. This application may best be interpreted for planning purposes as being inactive open space that is available to the town if that makes sense at preliminary subdivision. But until then, the town attorney would not advise that you take any land until you've completed that diligence. And so we've done that with Parker Ridge and a few other communities where there was an offer, but it's not an acceptance.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, board. Are there any other questions?
No further questions for the applicant.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, do we have any public comment on this one?
Sorry, I did have one quick question I forgot to ask. At the beginning in your presentation, you noted that the RH was the only zoning that was possible here? What was the issue with the others that are available?
Yes, sir. From my understanding of the LDO and in conversations we've had with planning staff, the RH zoning is the only zoning that allows for single-family attached. And so, and I apologize if this wasn't clear in the presentation, but we're seeking medium density from a density standpoint, but the only zoning that allows for townhomes or single-family attached is the RH designation, which kind of has a bad connotation of high density. That's why I wanted to make sure it was clear that we were seeking medium density, but in the RH zoning category because we're seeking townhomes.
I thought medium had it as well.
No, the residential medium district, or RM, does not permit single-family attached or townhomes. The 3 mixed-use zoning districts, TC, AC, and NC, they do permit townhomes, but the applicant, without putting words in their mouth, only wishes to develop residential and not a mixed-use neighborhood, meaning with some
Okay.
levels of non-residential or commercial.
Residential medium had.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thanks
thank
for
you.
clarifying that.
Do we have public comment on this one or anybody sign?
We don't per se have a pre-sign up, but if you'd like to ask the audience if there's
Yeah.
anybody who wishes.
Does anybody does anybody in the audience or have a comment on this? Okay. Hearing no comments, do we have we're open for a motion on this one?
I have one quick question amongst ourselves.
Okay.
Do we want to add a restriction on the allowed units per acre since it's RH out in that area? Because if this falls through and doesn't happen and we rezone it, then that means an apartment can go right there. So do we want to put something on this that says whatever, Eric, what was his units per acre on this project?
So there is a condition of approval proposed that would maximum or cap the density of residential attached or townhomes at 5.9.
5.9.
So that's density across the entire 12.2 acres. The apartment use would not be permitted by right because it's not shown or detailed in this concept plan or in this rezoning package.
Okay.
So
So
that
it's
one,
this rezoning is limiting itself to townhomes only.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Okay,
there you
good. That's, thanks for clarifying. Okay.
okay. No, good questions, so. Okay, so I guess we're open to a motion on this rezoning case.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion if there's no further comments.
Okay,
Motion to recommend to the Town Board of Commissioners approval of rezoning request REZ -25-03, 625 Averett Road, based on consistency with Rolesville's comprehensive plan.
okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a second in favor. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries to approve.
0. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Turn it back over, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. On to the next agenda item is number 2, REZ 24-05.
Yes, good evening again. This rezoning case is known as Atticus Woods, also referred to as Waite Avenue, as you'll see in just a moment. And again, another kind of top of the order disclosure here. This rezoning application was also heard at the October 27th Planning Board meeting. At that meeting, a full discussion did occur. The board made a recommendation of denial with several points. The applicant went back, has made several changes in the effort to address or resolve those comments and those issues that resulted in that recommendation. And so they're back here with a altered rezoning application. Part of that effort, they did go and hold another neighborhood meeting, which I'll leave for the applicant to speak to. And then for clarity, looks like the changes here are with proposed zoning conditions regarding a development agreement and the concept site plan. So those are the change documents or attachments here from the October 27th packet. So we'll start fresh with looking at the property here. The property is 5 address pin numbers along Waite Avenue. The total acreage is 105,619. This property has a bit of a split zoning. The majority of it is residential and planned unit development, R and PUD. That is, again, a harbinger from the old Unified Development Ordinance. And then a portion of it is also zoned residential low density. The proposed zoning is one of the 3 mixed-use districts in the LDO, the Neighborhood Center, and it's being proposed as a conditional or CZ. So it's an NC-CZ rezoning request. The proposed uses are single-family housing and commercial development. There are 2 pockets of commercial area on the concept site plan. This property also has an entitlement zoning history. Real quick, in 2018 or so, this property was rezoned for a project generally known as Thales Academy. It was a residential subdivision with a Thales Academy High School at the core of it. Also associated with that same project, SUP or Special Use Permit 1801 was approved, which was a requirement under the Unified Development Ordinance, again for that same project known as Thales Academy. In 2021-2022 era, Pulte Homes came forth with a special use permit amendment to try to change that original entitlement, essentially for a residential only project that did have some land on the eastern side, adjacent at the corner of Waite Avenue and Averitt Road, identified for future commercial. That was ultimately denied by the Board of Commissioners, generally for the lack of commitment to the timing of development of that commercial component. So back to the proposal this evening. There are a handful of proposed conditions of approval, a list of prohibited uses that would otherwise be permitted. Let's see, self-storage use is committed to being in this northwestern corner. This bluish area right here would be earmarked for a self-storage use. Parkland dedication of approximately 2.5 acres in the project in this vicinity here, and commitment to a maximum of 300 single-family detached and attached dwelling units with a maximum overall density of 4 dwelling units per acre. This project also is coming forth with a development agreement. Development agreements are permitted within the 3 mixed-use zoning districts. If you do recall, several months ago, we had a text amendment that came through the board and was ultimately approved by the Board of Commissioners related to the use of development agreements in these mixed-use zoning districts. What the development agreement allows is for the developer to ask for modifications to all of the development standards within the NC district. That's what the text amendment allowed. It kind of opened up the opportunities for the applicant to ask for changes to modify those standards. But it comes through as a development agreement, which is another legislative choice and decision of the Board of Commissioners. So the development agreement is kind of like an application within this rezoning application. And when we go to the Board of Commissioners, they will be separated out for 2 distinct decision points. So table 3.4.3 of the LDO, which is in the Neighborhood Center or NC zoning district, the applicant seeks to modify these 3 things: the minimum side setbacks for detached homes, reducing that number to 5 feet each. The maximum single-use building size to be 100,000 square feet. And then the maximum single-use building size for a grocery store use shall be 65,000 square foot. So modifications in that regard. Looking at the new 2050 comprehensive plan and the future land use map. So our subject property is right up here, Highway 98, Waite Avenue, Averitt Road corridor is here. It is this property here. All of this orange is that mixed residential community. That is the same land use category as our previous case on the agenda. And then there's this intersection, priority intersection, because of course that is a significant intersection in our region. The Community Transportation Plan, or CTP. This again is our property here. This property has 3 distinct CTP roadways crossing or affecting it. Before we get to those collectors, Waite Avenue is identified as being a 4-lane divided road within an ultimate right-of-way of 110 feet. So frontage improvements and right-of-way dedication along its Waite Avenue frontage would be required at the time of preliminary subdivision. Averett Road is identified as a 4-lane divided with a narrow raised median, also within a 110-foot right-of-way. So again, right-of-way frontage improvements, right-of-way dedication all along the frontage with Averett Road. Internal to the property are 3 collector level roadways. The first is a continuation of Austin Ridge Parkway, which is in this neighborhood to the west, existing neighborhood. It would curve through here and then complete its extension at Waite Avenue opposite Carrie Mae Lane. Another collector connection is from that Austin Ridge extension out to Averett Road near and would form an intersection with Old Pierce Road. The last is a more of a north-south collector. It would extend Classical Way, which exists in Elizabeth Springs, through this property and connect to that east-west connector that would then go either over to the Austin Ridge Parkway or to Averett Road. So kind of a 3-pronged level of collector level roadways within this property. And recall this property is 105 acres, so it's a significant site. The 2022 Greenway Bicycle Plan also called for improvements in this area. First on Waite Avenue and Averett Road are on the exteriors of this site. Waite Avenue calls for a side path along that frontage, and Averett Road calls for bicycle lanes and then side paths within that right of way along that eastern frontage. For greenways, the developer built greenways required running south to north through the subject property. That would generally need to align with where the system exists in Elizabeth Springs, which is a built neighborhood to the south. Regarding traffic impact analysis, this application performed a traffic impact analysis. The firm of DRMP, which is one of the town's 2 on-call consultants, performed that. In the box here are basically the highlights of the trip generation, that 300 dwelling units and approximately 200,000 square foot of commercial would generate just over 14,000 daily trips, 1,336 p.m. peak, that's the 4 to 6 p.m., and then in the a.m., just short of 800 in the 7 to 9 a.m. period. So those were the trip generations for this proposed project that were studied. Comprehensive plan consistency. The proposed residential and commercial uses are generally consistent with the mixed residential community, and this project is in fact providing a mix. Again, commercial is identified as being in these blue areas here, and then the orange would be pockets or land bays of the residential component. The applicant can go into more detail as to where they envision the detached and the attached product throughout this. I'm sorry. We had some more points here. The vehicular circulation is in general compliance with the CTP, Austin Ridge, Classical Way doing this. This roadway connection that the applicant has shown on the concept plan approximates the east-west. It would connect between that collector and this collector. This being a commercial component, there will be connectivity, and the outcomes of the traffic impact study identified that opposite Old Pierce Road will be the only permitted driveway location. So staff is understanding and very confident that connectivity through the commercial center will be available. So there will be an east-west means of egress and ingress through this project, thus fulfilling the 3-pronged collector level roadways between those. Concept site plan also details, or at least calls out, the intention to do side paths and bicycle lanes and the greenway as recommended by the town's greenways and bicycle plans. At this level of detail, those very small features cannot be graphically shown, but they are indicated. Comprehensive plan consistency. The vehicular circulation network includes connections from Austin Ridge to Carrie Mae Lane, which would be that new intersection there. The roadway connection is sized as a collector with a 60-foot right-of-way and reflective of the residential land use and the commercial land use. The collector connection from Classical Way in Elizabeth Springs to the collector connection to Old Pierce is shown. So all of those CTP requirements are generally shown. The overall staff recommendation is that this plan fulfills many of the future land use and comprehensive plan tenets. It also complies in good form with the CTP. It complies with the greenway and bicycle plan, the infrastructure plans for this area, both kind of off-site in Waite Avenue and Avery Road and throughout the site, meaning through the site with that greenway. Staff also finds that the requests under the development agreement to modify the few standards that were identified are reasonable and could be achieved through this project without any negative impacts. On screen are two motions. One to recommend either approval or denial of the rezoning request, and then again, because at the board level, these two items, the development agreement and the rezoning, will be treated separately, a separate recommendation to the board on that proposed development agreement. The applicant representative is here. They do have a presentation. I will be doing the screen part, but the applicant will be here ready to speak if you'd like to hear.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to step forward now?
Sure.
All right, while I'm waiting for the presentation to go up, my name is Toby Coleman. I'm with the law firm Smith Anderson here on behalf of Ardent Building, the applicant. Also here for Ardent Building tonight are Corey and David Schmidt. You've heard from Corey a bit at the October meeting. Also here are the project engineer, Bateman, got Eva King and her colleagues. And we appreciate y'all taking the time to let us come back and talk through the changes that have been made since the October meeting. We took the feedback that we heard from the planning board seriously. And as you heard from Mike, what we did was we made changes, went back to staff. Staff suggested that we come back to you. We also got the suggestion and took it seriously to go back to the neighbors and talk through the changes with the neighbors, which we did a few weeks ago. So as I talk through that, I may mention some of the things that have to give some context there, both because I think that there's some questions from the neighbors about some of these policies. So we wanted to highlight how we complied with the policies, but also highlight that a lot of these things are decisions made by the town at a higher policy level, particularly as to streets and connections. So as Mike said, you all heard this 2 months ago and recommended denial. And there are a few reasons. One was the staff found that the project was not consistent, particularly with the CPT, in that the plan, when you saw it back in October, didn't show road connections from the stub streets to the south and didn't show that sort of connection that goes through the blue commercial area on the eastern side of the project. We've made those changes. Those changes are bubbled. What those changes do is show a connection coming up from the two stub streets that are in the subdivision to the south, as well as the road connection that completes that east to west connection that's envisioned by the CPT. One of the things that I want to note again is, and Mike did a really good job, y'all know this, but I'm saying this in part just for everybody in the room to the extent that there's folks here for this project. The connections, particularly to the two stub streets in the subdivision to the south, were guided by and called for by the town's comprehensive transportation plan. They're required. They're required by the UDO whenever there's a sub street, and so we've done that. And we know that there may be some questions. We understand that. But we want to just highlight that again. Part of that's we know that y'all know that, but I wanted to highlight that because there may be some people here. As a result of these changes, as you heard, staff has now found that the plan is consistent with applicable plans. We think that's important to highlight, and we hope that it will help factor into your decision as you look at this and consider whether to change your recommendation. If you could go to the next slide, Mike. One of the other things that we have changed is we added a zoning condition related to self-storage. So there is one of the permitted uses in this mixed-use district is self-storage. It will only go in this sort of small 2.4 acre, 2.5 acre area on the northwest side of the property. The zoning condition basically says that's the only place it can go. The idea there is, and the plan is, to have an approximately 100,000 square foot facility at that location. That is, I'm talking a little bit about the development agreement here, but what the development agreement says is that you can have up to 100,000, a single building with a single tenant with up to 100,000 square feet. It's for this, it's for that building. So if you're wondering what exactly we're targeting at, that's what we're targeting at. If you go to the next slide, Mike. We had a question at the last meeting about, do you really need 100,000 square feet for a grocery store? We don't. We told you that at the time. We wanted to go ahead and make that very specific. So we have put into this a limit on the max size of the grocery store at 65,000 square feet. One of the other concerns that this board raised, and we took it as a fair comment, was when we came to you back in October, there was a request as part of the development agreement that the commercial build-out requirements be modified. So currently the town has a requirement to ensure that the commercial portions of these, what I'll call horizontal mixed-use developments, that the commercial portions actually get built and that you don't end up with an entitled set of commercial area and where the developer comes in, builds all the residential, but doesn't build any of the commercial. And what the LDO says is you can build 50% of your residential, and then, but you can't build more than that until you get some portion of your commercial permitted. We had asked for a modification back in October. This board had concerns about that. We have dropped the request for that modification. So we are going to abide by the LDO in that regard. Again, we wanted to highlight all of these changes. We are hopeful that based on these changes, we've addressed all of your concerns, at least in October. Happy to discuss further. We have our whole team here. One other thing I'll note is that just because there was some discussion earlier, about where the parks go in these subdivisions, I think y'all may be aware, but just to clarify, that sort of striped area there on the top of that plan is where the park area is. So it's right on the public street and will be very accessible. And that's something that we work with extensively with park staff to identify the correct location for that. So with that, we're available for questions.
All right. Any of the board members have questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I do. The collector street on I know the drawing, the map's off now, but the connector to, that's coming across on Carrie May. If I recall in the last meeting, the concern about a traffic light was conditional upon review after everything was built out. It wasn't going to be something that was going to be there from the beginning. Is that correct? Does that still stand with any changes in the way traffic and the numbers change here? Is it still, if it's needed?
You're talking about at along
Carrie May, the coming out the far left, the street that comes from
Austin Ridge.
Austin Ridge, and then comes out onto Waite.
Mm-hmm.
Across from Carrie May. Mm-hmm. If I recall, the last meeting we talked about how that was going to be a regular, intersection without any control. Is that still the way that pans out right now? There's no traffic light until NCDOT or somebody says it needs to be there.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is just as you may know, the DOT requires that the intersection meet certain standards. It's not an existing intersection at this point.
Right.
So we can't tell you right now that it will meet the criteria to get a light. So once it meets the criteria the DOT sets out to get a light, it would be able to get one, but we don't have that information as of yet.
So the impact on your project doesn't dictate enough information for that for NCDOT to make a decision on that.
That's correct. DOT never makes a decision at this point in the process. Unfortunately,
DOT never makes a decision. You could have stopped there.
Yeah.
Is there a warrant for that light? Because if it does come back and says you have to pay for it, you guys have a warrant to pay for that, right?
I'm saying yes.
And then the connector going out to Old Pierce, is that going to be broken by a parking lot for the commercial area, or is it going to be a continuous street from where it begins all the way out, or is it going to be broken up by a parking lot and still meeting?
It's likely to be broken up. In other words, it's likely to have to be a street within a parking area, as you see in many commercial areas.
So if I come from Pierce Road, Old Pierce Road, and I cross Averitt Road into the commercial space, I'm going to be in a parking lot like atmosphere to weave out to the back to get to the connector that actually connects me through into the subdivision. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Two questions regarding the commercial.
Yes.
So you're saying that the storage unit's 100,000, and then the
Up to 100,000 is what's permitted.
Okay, and the grocery store, those are the only two committed commercial.
So the grocery store could be up to 65,000, and the reason we're asking for those specifically is that the under the proposed mixed-use zoning that we have here, I think the cap is 50. I'm going off the top of my head here. So we've specifically identified those because we think those are the only two uses where there would be any need to exceed the current cap that's under the LDO. We anticipate, and I think the TIA had studied, I think, up to 3 restaurants, a gas station in this area, and then other associated retail that you would see in a grocery anchored shopping center.
Thank you.
So you're saying there would be additional out parcel buildings, just be less than that maximum allowed?
That's right. That's right. And again, my apologies if I mangle this, but as I understand it, the maximum is with the way that the mixed use size limits for commercial operate is they go by tenant. So if you have a building with a single tenant, you can't go above 40 or 50,000 square feet.
Correct, but you could have a multi-tenant 80,000 square foot building. So the regulation is all about the single. Think of the big box. That's what the intent of the square footage maximum throughout the LDO. It's all about the big box.
Yeah, and a lot of, and obviously we don't have the plans here, and those plans are subject to change, just like the rest of our world is, as you go through the process. But I think the vision thus far that I've seen when we've done sort of conceptual plans would be out parcels along the exterior, along Waite and Averitt, and then the grocery store sort of centered on the site, sort of with parking in between the out parcels and the grocery store, with some arms on either side of the grocery store with some related retail there.
Mm-hmm. And did I see all the self-storage will be enclosed self-storage?
That's
proposed?
Yes, that is correct.
All right.
Could you, just for the sake of it, again, because this is just the rezoning, it's not a concept plan vote, this is just for the rezoning, can you review again what your summary for the changes in zoning are, what they are right now versus what you'll need for these 3 sections?
So you're saying, what are the changes in terms of overall, what it currently is on the ground versus what we're proposing?
Right, please.
Sure. And I'm going to have to cheat a little here, so give me a second. The current zoning is a legacy zoning. It was, as Mike said, it was initially done, and I can't remember. Do you remember the number of homes that were permitted?
Sorry, I'm trying to get that slide to show up again. It was in that 300 ballpark, as I recall.
So similar number of homes. The big change is that original zoning and special use permit that were approved by the Board of Commissioners in pre-COVID envisioned a Thales Academy facility there. Thales, I think, is aiming for the parcel across the street to the north. And so, when Pulte came back, there was a real desire to see commercial where we proposed commercial. And I think where the rubber met the road with Pulte and the special use permit, and I'm obviously going, sort of taking a 30,000-foot view was just there wasn't a strong commitment as to when that would get done. And the way that this zoning will work, it basically bakes that commitment in by saying you can't build more than half of your homes until you start building your commercial. So the big change is really moving from the educational use to the commercial retail use and adding that aspect there, with the idea being that it's at a major intersection and located in an area that doesn't have that within the town.
Commissioner Schwartz, under the old zoning, it was a permitted use. The R and PUD allowed. It's a very customizable zoning district, including the special use permit. So the special use permit was essentially, think of it, the singular ask to do a Thales Academy high school, and that was approved by the board. That was the nature of zoning under the unified development.
I thought the commercial zoning now still allows for charter schools.
Oh, like the general commercial zoning district. I'd have to double check the LDO for that fact, if that's a concern.
No, I would just,
That
if
just-
it's not
just a
really a
thought,
change.
just to
if
compare
If it was
it.
allowed, right?
Yeah. Well, again, the property has a very unique entitlement. That Thales Academy project with the 300 homes, the concept plan, all of that, binding to that degree. So if Thales was not going to be part of that, that whole entire entitlement is pretty much gone. Thus the need for someone to rezone afresh.
And then I also recall going back to 2018, when that was before, one of the other issues was that intersection was classed as an F from NCDOT, as I recall. And the proposal at that time was only going to bring it up to like a D rating, which was another part of a big problem, because anybody who knows that area knows how that is. Now, since then, it's gone from a flashing yellow light to a full-out stoplight. But if I recall correctly, your project was going to bring that up to a C grade with all your improvements, if I recall correctly. So
I think that's right. Yeah.
Right? So there's a little bit more coming out of that. The greenway, I thought, was on the east side. So that means that's not your responsibility, the east side of Avett Road. So that would not be your responsibility, or will it be?
On Avett Road, I think we are putting in a larger street.
Speaking side path.
Yeah, side path, sorry, yes.
Side path, I believe, is required on their side of the street or the west side.
But there's also,
because you had said east, and I wasn't sure if that was.
I think I referred to maybe the east side of the site, or the
Okay,
project site, not
okay,
the east
I
side
think
of
that's
Avett.
what, okay, that's what I was.
East side of Avett Road in the vicinity is the watershed.
And
That's,
then there
okay,
is-
that's, thank you. That's what I got confused with when you said east. Okay.
and then in addition to what we're talking about on Avett, there'll also be basically on the other side of that larger commercial development. So on the west side of the commercial development, you will have the developer built greenway that's required by the town
Yeah, and
plan.
that's what you'll connect on Avett Road to Elizabeth Springs and all the way down.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that park dedicated space to the town, or is that to
Yes.
the?
Well, as your town attorney advised, it will be offered as dedication.
But at least this one, you know, it's going based on what Parks
Oh, no, I just-
Association, you know.
It makes perfect sense to be where it is and all that, but I just wasn't sure if it was not mentioned if it was being offered to the
Yeah.
town or not.
Yes, that was an extensive point of discussion. It actually, I think, moved around quite a bit during
Because it was in the middle, like you
process.
mentioned earlier, and then it's, yeah.
Down here.
So what is the zoning for the residential part is what I'm getting at. That's what I still wanted to understand. I get the commercial part of it, and I understand what you've done by not asking, you know, you've removed that condition off of there, but what is, and I just want to get an understanding of what happens if all this falls through like the previous project. You know, what are we left with in the non-commercial areas?
Sure. So the entire parcel is zoned with the mixed use zoning, the neighborhood mixed use. So that would be the zoning for the residential area, with the key limits being the lot sizes, with the lot sizes that are set out under the LDO. The plan does cap the number of residential units at 300 total within the area shown. So it's a sort of a total number cap. As you can see there, or probably intuit, if you are familiar at all with the site, there's a fair amount of natural area, they'll have to be preserved either because of riparian buffers or otherwise. And so it's fairly easy to meet that sort of lower density standard, in this case, just because there's a lot of natural area. The main modification we are seeking from the residential standards set out in the LDO are something y'all discussed and said you guys had looked at before and been okay with, was a reduction to side setbacks. And again, that's just to allow for a more modern sort of tighter lot that meets all the LDO standards in terms of lot size, but building placement gives them a little bit more flexibility.
Is there, because I don't recall seeing it unless I missed it, but I don't recall seeing a condition for maximum units per acre either.
There's not a condition for maximum units per acre. It's certainly it's within the plan itself where it talks about the maximum number. And I think that's the way staff interprets it as well.
I believe it's.
Is it in the zoning conditions?
I'd have to double check.
Oh, I've got it right here.
Synopsis says it's a density of 4 units per acre.
Yeah,
it
is a zoning condition.
It is. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the zoning condition is 300 single family and townhome units at an overall density of 4 units per acre.
Okay, so we're restricting to townhomes and for 4 units per acre.
Correct.
On this zone case.
On this case, yes.
Thank you. I don't have anything else, sorry.
All right.
Sounds good.
Anybody else have any questions?
One quick question. If you know where you had the bubbles were the changes?
It was the first slide. Oh, it's on yours.
Oh, yours?
Yeah, I think it was
Yours?
on mine.
Okay, 1 second.
Can you ask about the stub out of the stub out?
Yep.
Good, because I was gonna let it go.
I'll start answering a question if I'm understanding it correctly. You're asking about the stub out on the western
stub
side?
out.
The stub out on the stub out. The reason for that is that obviously there's some natural area there where you can't really practically cross the stream without going through a lot of headache. There are going to be homes there. And so that's what's shown there is that it's not just like a stub out just to stub it out. There's going to be.
So you could put like a little roundabout or circle, little cul-de-sac and with some homes. Okay, fair enough.
And that is, I believe, all addressed in the LDO in terms of how you have to stub out.
So when a neighboring property like Elizabeth Springs has 2 platted, recorded, built streets, the LDO requires the neighboring property, when they develop, to make those connections. That's immaterial of the community transportation plan. The collectors that we've talked about, a stub requires connection to, period, the end. The Board of Commissioners even passed a text amendment a few years ago to reinforce that and require that. So that's a fresh idea from the Board of Commissioners in the LDO. So that affects, I forget the western street in the Springs, but the eastern one is Classical Way, which there's more to speak about because that's a collector. But yeah, so both of those, and so this plan is showing compliance with that future subdivision requirement, which was one of the staff reasons for recommending denial.
And in some ways, particularly with that one on the left, and I apologize, I'm blanking on the name as well. It reflects the plans that always existed. It just we didn't have that little street. And again, we only have the stub there because this is a bubble plan. There's going to be homes there. There's going to be
Isn't that the stub out that has the greenway though?
No. The greenway
is on Classic Way? The greenway's on Classic Way? Okay.
Yeah, that's what the plan calls for. That's what the town plan calls for, and that's where the
I
greenway is.
couldn't remember
You can
which
see
one
it right-
had the greenway.
Yeah, it's got
added
that
to it.
pink line right there is the greenway.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, here none. Do we have anyone from the public signed up on this, Michael?
No one has signed up, but again, there was no circulation, so I think you do again ask for audience participation.
If we have any audience members who'd like to speak,
If you could
please
ask them
step
to
forward.
please sign in.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Hi, my name is Michael Gibbons. I live at 204 Kavanaugh Road. And we have some of our neighbors here that have some concerns about buffers and transportation. Those are the 2 things that are primary in our mind. This is a big ask for us that live on the eastern side that is abutted by the commercial property, 28 acres of commercial property with gas stations and grocery stores. So what we're concerned about is eliminating or not necessarily following, not going with minimum buffer requirements behind those. And we would rather it be in the zoning approval rather than negotiated at some later point. We don't have a lot of confidence that promises are going to be kept, but that's probably our fault, not yours. So what we would like to do is get your attention and focus it on two things. One, the buffers, the lots from Averett Road up to Classical Way are elevated. The property behind them, the rezoned property is elevated. It goes up a hill so that you can see traffic on 98 from our backyards. So what we're concerned about is a 25-foot buffer or a 50-foot buffer that we plant trees that are going to grow big in 30 years. That's not going to help us much right now. The second thing that we're concerned about is the opening of Classical Way, the opening of that stubbed out road. You can look at that map and let's just imagine for a second somebody coming home from Wake Forest and the lights backed up. What are they going to do? They're going to turn right on Classical Way. They're going to come unimpeded through the commercial area, right out onto Kavanaugh Road. They're going to turn left, and then they're going to turn right on Averett Road and go home. You're going to have a delivery truck from your Rolesville Publix that is going to headed to now the next stop, which is this grocery store. Do we really think they're going to go up to the light at 98, wait for that light, turn left, and go and come in on one of the other? No, they're going to turn left on Kavanaugh Road, and they're going to turn right on Classical Way and come into the grocery store in the back direction. It's just going to be an absolute nightmare. I understand what we're talking about with the community transportation plan requiring that connectivity, but I'm not supposed to ask a question I don't know the answer to, but I would think that when that plan was put in place, that was not a 28-acre commercial property. We are directing, we're encouraging commercial use with the number of trips that we're seeing on the traffic plan. We are directing them, we're funneling them into Elizabeth Springs and onto Kavanaugh Road. So it just, we'd like some consideration for the fact that that is going to fundamentally change the nature of the neighborhood. That Classical Way opening creates a connection. It goes right up to 98. It's a straight shot. It's a straight shot to 98. Doesn't go through the parking lots like the other ones talk about. It is a straight shot. People are going to use that as a bypass. Classical Way is not a collector road. We have a 28-acre commercial plot that needs to accommodate the traffic that it generates and not look to Elizabeth Springs and Classical Way and Kavanaugh Road to carry their traffic loads. So those are the two things. Extraordinary buffers. We've got the pond here that has, I'm going to say 250 mature trees around it. if that pond right next to Classical Way gets drained and they determine that that's where they're going to put their water retention facility, we were told at the community meeting, it's going to make it bigger. There's going to be more water down there. You're going to love it. Well, you're going to have to cut down 50, 60, 100 trees. We're concerned about a buffer, and that decision eliminates a natural buffer that already exists. So there are just some things about that we just needed you to hear from us, that it concerns us. It's going to change Elizabeth Springs. We were there. We're not saying we're not anti-growth, but the Classical Way cut through will fundamentally change our neighborhood.
Thank you. Are there anyone else from the public that'd like to speak? Okay.
I'll come up with that.
Chairman Moss, would you wish for the clerk to keep a timer?
Yes, please.
We'll follow the Board of Commissioners protocol of 3 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Josh Hurst. I live on Kavanaugh Road near Classical Way in the Elizabeth Springs neighborhood. Before my wife and I bought our house last year, we checked the town zoning map and understood that the development north of Elizabeth Springs, the property in question here, was zoned for a school and for medium density, I'm not sure if I'm using the correct technical term there, but medium density residential houses. So we proceeded to purchase the property and move in. We're now concerned that the town is considering changing the zoning to be for, among other things, a gas station, a large grocery store, and more dense residential. I know this is not the intent, but if the board approves this zoning change, it feels, and pardon the phrase, but it feels like a bait and switch. It feels like a way of attracting residential property to Elizabeth Springs, and you know what the development north of it is going to be based on what the zoning is, and then changing the zoning to be a much less desirable adjacent land use after all of the houses in Elizabeth Springs have been purchased. I understand that the 2050 comprehensive plan that was adopted in October has identified the area north of Elizabeth Springs as mixed residential community, like Mike was talking about. Also understand that according to the comp plan, mixed residential includes economic development considerations of, quote, small-scale commercial uses at key intersections such as coffee shops, personal care services, and convenience stores, unquote. Nowhere in this comp plan does it call for a gas station or a large grocery store in a mixed residential community. Switching to the LDO identifies the purpose and intent of a neighborhood center zoning district as permitting, quote, small-scale neighborhood-oriented commercial uses that are compatible with nearby residential uses. Is that the goal? This site plan that was included in the appendix of the traffic study certainly isn't showing the commercial and even as we look at the shades of blue and tan here, it's not showing the commercial as mixing with the residential or as being part of a neighborhood center or community. In addition to the site plan not showing an integrated use, neither a 12-pump gas station nor a large grocery store are compatible. In fact, Table 5.1 of the LDO permits a small grocery store, but requires a special use permit for a medium grocery store or for the large grocery store or for a gas station. If neither the comp plan nor the LDO allow for these inappropriate uses, why would you grant so many exceptions that take away from the character of a mixed residential or neighborhood center? Well, it seems like it would be simple to also allow a correctional facility or landfill back there as well. I would humbly request that the town not proceed with this significant change. We moved here understanding that the adjacent property would be a school and medium density residential. And we realize that that is not where this is headed because of the unique situation.
I have to stop you here. Thank you for your comments. Your time is up.
Thank you.
All right, please, next.
Good evening. My name is Molly. I live on Kavanaugh. Thank you so much for hearing us and all your hard work and your love for Rolesville. We understood that there would be a classical school built behind our home. We know, as I have taught classically for 18 years, that the inherent nature of a classical education philosophy is all about quality and beauty. The school would have wanted a beautiful campus and certainly would not have wanted to destroy the beauty already on the property, such as the ponds on the area in question. It would have added to the neighborhood both quality and beauty. What is being proposed from the developer and the new zoning is the very opposite. The developer wants to rip out the ponds, killing the homes of beautiful wildlife. In that pond, there are fish, there's turtles, there's ducks, there's herons. One of them we've named Kevin, that have made those ponds their home, and it has provided fishing for the neighborhood. What's even better than a park is that your children can go fish. We love to see children in the neighborhood go with their fishing poles on their back, with their worms, and go and sit along that pond and fish. We had dreams of taking our grandchildren someday and teaching them how to fish in that pond. And the development plan right now wants to rip that away. The plan to have no interest in creating sufficient buffers to protect the neighbors of the development. There is no plan for that. The 25 minimum buffer is all we heard at the last meeting. That was all the concern. We don't hear any concern about the neighbors at all. It will drastically take away the value of the neighborhood and town, and certainly take away the beauty of the neighborhood that this developer built. This plan does not care about any of this, as in it demands to be stripped it all away. We aren't asking that you not develop. We're all for growth, of course. Growth must happen. However, we ask that that growth be done in a way that sets Rolesville apart, that makes it a place people want to live, not just a place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you please state your name and address also?
Molly.
All right, thank you. Is anyone else would like to speak?
Margaret Watkins, 407 Bellmelon Court. Like what the last lady mentioned, we've got an issue where we've got a seasoned developer who developed a neighborhood. And now they are developing the site next to it. They are well aware of what best practices are, and they aren't following them. You don't put single family homes next to a loading dock, which is exactly what their preliminary plan has. Single family home, I mean, imagine opening your back door and looking at a loading dock. Is that a house that you would want to live in? Of course not. Nobody would purchase a home like that. I would ask that this board implement or recommend a minimum of a 50-foot evergreen buffer between the commercial and the single family houses. Pull the parking closer to the interior of the site. Full cutoff lighting fixtures, and recommend hours of operations for the commercial if we're going to have that be commercial. They could easily manipulate their site to be friendlier to the neighboring development. They can move the commercial over, move the park back closer to the residential areas, and have it go from single family to townhouses. That's what a best practice is for the commercial. But that's clearly not what they're doing. And it's to maximize profit. If we're gonna have seasoned developers come in here and ask for rezonings, now's the time to fix it. Otherwise, you're gonna end up getting your hand popped just like Holly Springs did. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hello, my name's Ed Ortels, 308 Cavanaugh Road.
for your consideration, maybe with the buffer zone, maybe you could consider moving the 2.5 acre park maybe behind the houses right there on Kavanaugh to give a buffer zone at least, which can be incorporated right into the existing pond, which might actually be a nice area. And to your comments earlier, there is access for the general public, for Rolesville citizens, to come in those other entranceways to access the park, so it fulfills that need as well. But it might solve a buffer zone problem with trees on the farther end and cover up some of the commercial truck space that'll be parked there. So with everyone else that spoke today about Classical Way, yes, it's going to bring a lot of traffic into, and possibly the trucks are going to be coming right in front of those homes. There's a lot of kids right in that neighborhood, right in that particular area. So again, just for your due consideration, I live further down the road near that stub second road, but the speed at which all the cars are coming down now and the service vehicles, they're coming in fast. I know there were studies done and it passed. That's because there's signs up and everybody, follows the rules while they're there. But I can tell you, living there, they're zooming by and it's a little bit scary with the kids. And I can just imagine once that road's open, and like Mike said before, it's a straight road to 98, which I would even use because it's easier than going up to the traffic light. So just for your consideration, for the neighbors' sakes and for all our houses there to consider, changing that Classical Way, maybe moving the park behind the homes, which would be, maybe a much nicer area for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Anyone else?
My name is George Garcia, 524 Averett Road. A more fundamental issue here is that all these commissions and all the politicians are making decisions on the ETJ, and these people in the ETJ, including myself, cannot vote to make sure that we get the right politicians. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please.
Heather Engard, I live at 216 Kavanaugh Road. I'm 4 houses from Classical Way. I live directly behind that pond. I shook David Schmidt's hand when I bought my home, and he thanked me for buying that home. They then clear cut my backyard. So there's nothing, there's no trees, there's nothing between me and the pond that is now being recommended to be drained, and a retention pond be put there with clear cutting those trees. And I know that the developer has talked about making that a much larger area. That's my home, and that devalues my property. So I am asking for your consideration to all of us that live along Kavanaugh Road, between Classical Way being a connector and for taking away the buffer that we all need to keep in order to maintain our value on our homes and our love of being in the town of Rolesville. And I know that you want to keep Rolesville to be a nice place, and you've got homeowners here who are invested in the town. And my ask is that you take all of us, our voices, into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, I have a quick question for staff.
Okay, go right ahead.
What is the standard buffer between a commercial zone and a residential zone? I know it's different than a
Are you
house.
interested in what the buffer for this proposal would be?
In the LDO, and then
Yes.
what this is proposing?
So this proposal was an NC zoning district. NC and all the 3 mixed-use districts have a unique perimeter compatibility. It's a 3-zoned area. It's a transition, buffer space, and then a use and form. It's not what we're used to seeing here through a residential rezoning of, let's say, a 25-foot with a fence and a set of trees and some shrubs, et cetera. It's a very unique, different type of buffer. The depth will be in the 20 to 30-foot range, depending on how the
What would be
developer.
the standard if it was commercial to residential?
General commercial zoning,
General commercial to residential. So let's say
A type
it's not-
3 or a type 4.
there's just somebody's coming in and buying and wants to put a commercial zone where that blue is.
Yeah.
What is the standard buffer between those two
A
locations?
type 3 or a type 4, 25 foot with either a fence, or either a wall or a berm with a wall on top of it. Same amount of plantings, et cetera. So it's 25 foot.
But you still have the opaque berm, right?
Yes.
Is the builder willing to make that condition?
There's also the opacity issue.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying is
And
if you
with
meet,
what- right.
if you're meeting the standard of what the LDO has between a normal commercial district and a residential district
Right.
versus because you don't have that in this, is that something that the builder would
I was
consider?
gonna go to the same place, because I think there can be, and even to the point of the last residential speaker, with the unfortunate idea of draining that pond, same idea, like everything across that commercial should have a much thicker, wider,
It's really that they have to put that opaque fence or
Right.
berm or some other
right,
methodology. As somebody pointed out, the trees that you would plant there, my kids would probably figure out where, when they finally grew up, maybe planting decent trees. But the berms will prevent, or the fencing will prevent that staring at the backyard.
Not just out to be left with a natural habitat. I don't want to stare into a concrete wall or fence.
there would be vegetated buffers on both sides of that wall, or some of other, so it wouldn't be, you wouldn't just be locked into a wall. And that's part of what we would be addressing right now with the condition, to make sure there's some sort of vegetated buffer to create zero opacity, so you couldn't see through it, for instance, as well as that other kind of natural feeling, to replace that as much as possible, is at least where I would be going with the condition that we're asking about.
That's the standard. That's the standard between a commercial. Like
Right,
if you were
and that was a thing I was gonna point out too.
I can't think of the name, the old Pine Glow,
Yep.
behind it
They have
is
to go
residential,
thicker.
but
Yep.
you have to put certain type of
Right.
piece in there. I'm asking the builder if he'll meet that same condition.
Right.
I think
The
Mr.
NC
Elmore-
district, again, is very unique.
I
Does
understand.
not have those, what most of us are used to.
Well,
With the 4 buffer types, a type 1, 2, 3, and a 4, they get increasingly depth, and they get more intensive with the things you put in them, including a solid.
Well, the whole
cement wall.
point, because you're mixed use, is that you don't have that sort of buffer because it's mixed use. However, you're not mixed use in the neighboring property.
Right.
So my ask is the builder willing to build to the LDO between the two
That border.
on that border, just that border?
Right.
The existing one that goes across the road, that's up to the people who are buying those homes tomorrow.
Which, by the way, is where whoever mentioned it, which is where I would have the loading dock back up to the connecting street, not up to the, so, and I'll get to another point when we get there, because I got a couple other things to say, but we need the answer to that question from the developer first.
So generally, the answer is, yeah, we're happy to provide an evergreen buffer with berm meeting some of the standards discussed, which I think is 25 to 50 foot width, up to a certain standard. I couldn't quite tell if we determined if that's a type 2, type 3, or type 4. And I think what we'd ask is perhaps that you make a recommendation to the board, because I think there's some specific complications here on just making sure that we word it correctly. Specifically, and specifically the concerns are where that pond ends up vis-a-vis the property line is going to determine somewhat how the buffer goes, because you can't obviously put a buffer over water. So, is the buffer going to be behind it? Is it going to be in front of it? How do you work that is going to be one of the questions that I don't really want to try to hammer out right here on the fly. Again, it's not trying to avoid this, and we're happy to communicate. We met with the neighbors. We'll continue to talk with the neighbors and work with them. I expect the board will expect the same thing. I want to make sure that we get this right for everybody, as opposed to getting you something and saying, yes, we'll do X, Y, Z. We are going to do a buffer. We're going to do a fence, or happy to, fence, wall. We'll talk about those. I don't know if those are specific concerns or not, so we'll have to hammer through that with the neighbors. But
So you're willing to add that as a condition?
Yes, we're willing to add that as a condition. I don't have a specific condition to provide
It would be
today.
amended to the condition.
Yep, exactly.
So,
And Eric, can you specify, is the type 4 the least transparent and widest?
yes, I can tell you, 'cause
right?
I'm
A
looking at
type
it.
4 is 25 foot in depth. It includes a minimum 3-foot berm and I believe it's a 5-foot wall on top of it. So you get 8 foot of vertical there. It is the most intense. There's 4 classifications. 4 is the most intense.
Does it specify on what side the wall is with respect to vegetated buffer?
Yes. It goes on the interior, or in this case, the applicant's project side.
Okay.
So the vegetation is facing the exterior, or in this case, the Elizabeth Springs side.
So they would get the
okay.
green.
You would see the vegetation before you saw the berm and the wall.
Right, okay.
That's the way all of the buffers are designed.
From the outside.
The softscapes towards the outside or the adjacent property, the hardscapes are towards the interior.
Okay, thank you.
That would all be decided at the concept plan with staff and.
Well,
applicant, correct?
We would
Anything above
specify
and beyond the LDO, in the NC zoning district has a perimeter compatibility buffer standard. That's the standard. By right, this project would have to comply with that. If the applicant wishes to put a condition of approval that promises to do more than that, or in addition to that, they stack those two spaces together, they can do that. Again, in this venue, I think I'm in agreement with the applicant here. Make that part of your recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. And then the applicant can change and update their materials, propose that in the packet to the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners will hear your message. They will look at what the applicant put together and make the decision if that meets the goal of this modified recommendation that the board makes.
It would be best for the town attorney if the planning board's recommendations stated what the planning board believes is needed to conform to the comp plan and the LDO, and what additional things are needed in order to get there. That would be the recommendation. The exact wording isn't necessary because your recommendation will be seen by the staff and the neighbors, and they will propose a condition and will wordsmith it by the time it gets to the next level. But say what you heard or what you have determined from the comp plan and the LDO is what sounds like would be needed. Just layman's language.
Fair enough. Something like approve blah, 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 but adding a level 4 buffer between the commercial zone and the Kavanaugh Road connections.
Sure. If you guys are at the point of saying level 4, great. If you weren't there, it would be a 25 to 50 foot vegetated buffer with a berm and wall. Just use words. That would be great.
Are we ready to even commit to that, just based on what I'm hearing? I think there's still more work that needs to be done before I'm comfortable with, I'm speaking to the board, before I'm comfortable with even addressing that. I would respectfully ask that the developer guide that language based on what they've heard from the residents this evening.
We're happy to do so. I would just note, I understand your concerns. I think just speaking as a land use attorney, it's always helpful to get recommendations from the planning board to the extent you guys are looking for something specific. We certainly heard the same things you all have, and we expect that the board would hear all these things and have the same concerns. So we're going to work on this very hard. I just say that to say that I know that there's sometimes a desire to get some more specifics in terms of recommendations. So while there may be some reluctance, I would agree that if you guys could provide some general, even if it's like, we'd like to see a buffer, we'd like to see a berm, we'd like to see it be evergreen. I think those are some of the things that I heard. And if you guys make those recommendations, that's already sort of areas that we're already looking at. So you can be, I think you will, the board will end up seeing that we're going to need to follow through with that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Second question for staff.
Was that?
Second question for staff.
Go right ahead.
I heard the questions around where the trucks are coming in. My assumption that they'd actually coming in off of old piers, but there's several streets I've seen that have the no truck sign. Is that a DOT thing? Is that legally binding from if you drive your truck down here, you can get a ticket?
So
and that may be a legal question that you'd have to ask law enforcement to ask, but.
Kavanaugh Road, Classical Way, those are town streets. So the town would have the purview to put up any such signage, do traffic analysis about the frequency of such, outside vehicles or non-resident type traffic. Any of those things are possible if and when those issues arise. But from the DOT perspective, the town could put up signs on its own streets.
Is that enforceable from law enforcement?
That I cannot answer.
Area Street's an example, yes.
Yes, the town can regulate traffic by ordinance, and we do, and other towns do. The other thing that comes into play, and I do not know what standard, I cannot remember what could be done with regard to the design of the road to calm it in such a way that it becomes less attractive to those concerns of high speed or heavy traffic. The challenge is there's another kind of truck that we do want to use it, and that's a fire vehicle. So there's often a desire to turn it into a serpentine kind of a structure, but it can't be so non-navigable that only a Honda Civic or a Jeep can make it. We want to be able to preserve the public safety that we get from interconnectivity if that's where we go. And that is the goal of interconnectivity set out in the plan.
Thank you. Are there any other members from the public who haven't already spoken that would like to speak? I think you've already utilized your time. I think you've already utilized your time for this evening. All right, hearing no other or seeing no other public members, I'd like to thank you all for your comments and encourage you to attend the town commissioners meeting, no matter the outcome of this meeting, when that does arise. All right, is there any other discussion from the board members?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I want to just acknowledge the residents and appreciate you coming out and sharing your voices and your concerns. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I do want to give just a little bit of feedback. Out of all the points that were made, the buffer is the one that we can deal with the most because of the zoning case itself. Most all the other issues, whether it's the park location, the layout of the commercial property where a loading dock is, even what they're going to or not going to go to do to the nature that exists there, and even the street cut through, those are all things that come out, and please, you'll jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but those are all layouts and design issues that I highly encourage you to stay on top of throughout this whole process. This is just the zoning part of it, okay? When it comes to designs and concept plans, stay on top of what's going on, stay on top of your commissioners, and talk about these ideas that you don't want. If you don't want the loading dock on the backside, then talk to the developer about moving it on the road that they're going to create, like I was just suggesting earlier. Those are design issues that you can influence with your participation, okay? We can't do a lot about those things because, as you can see, there is no design here other than the infrastructure because that's relative to zoning. So we are bound in a little bit of what we can and cannot dictate. And as my fellow board member talked about what we can do with the buffering, you can see that we're able to act on that as immediately as we did tonight. So just stay in tune, and even if this goes somewhere you don't want it to go, just understand that you have the ability to talk about the layout and the design and other opportunities. Okay, so please continue to stay involved. And thank you for coming out tonight.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Only because I know staff is going to be thinking about this after this meeting as we work on a draft statement from the planning board. It would be helpful if the board were to have some discussion about the CTP requirement for the interconnectivity of Classical Way, whether that on balance is something that the planning board and their expertise think is a good idea, a bad idea, or a good idea if it were done a different way. That would be helpful to the Board of Commissioners. For the board to do something with it, they would need to amend the CPT.
All right. Anyone have any comments about the connections via
I guess the only thing on the CTP, we're gonna, like say they have the Greenway would have to be relocated if we relocated Classical Way. So, and I agree. I think what we're you were asking about the legalities or enforcement of traffic. I mean, we had the example with Perry Street where town put up signs and PD actually patrolled the area and handled the traffic flow, and no large trucks, no, dual axle vehicles, that type of thing. And I think that will be something to put into the condition probably.
And if you're a commercial driver and get tickets, it's not a great place for you to be.
Right.
And I kind of feel like also for this plan to meet all the recommendations of the CTP and the rest of the plans, I mean, those connections have to be made.
Right.
I question though, if the road is still classified as a connector, if where it comes out of Classical Way, it takes a left-hand turn and meets that other loop right there and doesn't go all the way through all the way up. In other words, if you came off of Waite Avenue, you would hit a T intersection and you'd have to take a right and then take a left down that little loop. Does it have to go all the way through? Does it still meet the connecting if that section right where your mouse is, right there, straight down to the pond, if that was gone, and then from the pond you went to that little loop, the U right there, does that still meet the connectivity?
You connect.
I mean, because then it's not as nice to cut through that road, because if I took a right-hand turn off of Everett, or I'm sorry, off of Waite into the new turn, I have to take another right, then a left, then a left, then a right to get all the way to Classical, which would really deter anybody from trying to cut through. But does that still meet the CPT requirement, because their connectivity is not continuing?
I would generally say no, it does not. The CTP roads are meant to be heavily traveled.
Mhm.
We have minor streets that feed to collectors feed to arterials feed to highways. Or, that's the hierarchy of roadways. So with Classical Way being built as a 65-foot right-of-way in Elizabeth Springs, Kavanaugh is, I believe, a 60-foot right-of-way. It's another collector roadway. This is all part of the planned network. Again, circa the 2021 CTP that was adopted with these lines there. What's variable with the lines is exactly where they go.
Right.
But the intent of the plan was to bring a collector from Classical Way somewhere up into this property, maybe connecting to Waite Avenue, maybe not. Again, the applicant has made a proposal to take the Classical all the way to Waite Avenue, but not do a 60-foot or wider right-of-way road east-west, the loopy one here between Austin Ridge and the Classical, and then through here, most of this driven by their chosen land use. Running a public street bisecting a commercial area like that is impractical and honestly no favor to the town directly, but that could be an option here.
But that's what I don't understand. If we're allowing a connecting street to be segmented by a parking lot, I don't understand why this can't just go through the,
Ultimately, this is a large policy decision. Does this layout equal the CTP based off the applicant's request to rezone and to land bay, the orange for residential, the blue for commercial, or a shopping center in this case. So that's the decision of the board, whether this meets the intents of the CTP in this part of the world. And they have the right to say yes, no, or maybe so to this layout. They can also just delete roads from their CTP as an action of a rezoning. So that's another possibility.
Yeah, and commissioners can choose to do that.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be clear, at the time Elizabeth Springs was built, before a single house was built and before anybody moved in, that street on our transportation plan, right or wrong, had it designed to be this.
The entitlements for both Elizabeth Springs and the old Bailey's Academy project predate this current plan. I cannot say with 100% certainty what the CTP road plan said before that point. But Kavanaugh got platted as a 60+ foot right-of-way. Classical Way got platted as a 65-foot right-of-way.
I mean, the only other things I can think of is like no right-hand turns between 3 and 6 p.m. and you know what I mean? Those kinds of things are the only things I can think that could be enforceable by the town to prevent that type of through traffic.
Couldn't do that on weight though, because that's not a DOT road.
No, you wouldn't do it on Waite. You would do it on the entranceway to this
Yeah,
new road coming in from the stop saying, no through traffic between, 3 and 6 p.m. or something like that. You know what I mean? Then it becomes something that the town can enforce and work with. Again, I don't know, saying that out loud more for the residents to kind of use your imagination of what you can do to get the town to do something to restrict and make it not attractive to the attorney's point. All right, unless the developer is standing up to tell me, yeah, we'll do that.
I don't know the answer to that, but what I can tell you is that we are providing this because that's our understanding of what the town has, the town's guidance is for a collector road here. Would, given the developer's preference, would they want a collector road at Classical Way? I think the answer is no. I think we see this as because this has been seen, because other plans that the town has set out have indicated that this should be a mixed use area, and with that mixed use, with a mix of uses, you would want the commercial closer to the large intersection, right? So you want it at Waite and Averett, just as a practical matter. We understand the need for connectivity. It's always an issue, as you all know, when you have an existing neighborhood with a stub street. There's a reason you have it as a law and not an option, because given an option, a lot of municipalities just say, oh, this is too hard. So you put it as a law so that you have to do it. But this is not something that we're coming here saying we have to have this. This is something that we're doing because we're being told we have to do this, that being the distinction. So if you guys said, I'll just be honest with you, if you guys said, board, we don't see a need for this, you guys should consider deleting it. We would be happy to support that. Otherwise, we're going to continue to do this and try to do our best to try to figure out some ways, whether it's, the change. I don't know if that would work or not. We'd have to talk with staff. We'd have to do a lot of work on that. But we're going to look at, we'll continue to look at all options.
Well, I think one option would be to do the same thing you're doing with the other street.
Yeah, I hear you loud and
just
clear.
Stub it out into another, cul-de-sac and find the connectivity, or make the claim, that Eric is kind of mentioning to the board that this is not, appropriate for the concern that the residents share in the real world scenario that I can imagine 1,000 times. It's going to happen all over the place. I think it's a very valid concern. So I think, you present that as an alternative to the rule. And I think with, again, the residents' participation and attendance to those town board meetings with the commissioners, and I would not wait till then, I would talk to them before then and let them know that this is a concern. So, yeah.
I mean, we looked at, I will tell you, I bugged your esteemed town attorney quite a bit about this issue, and could we find a way to, could we find a way around the Classical Way issue? And I think the answer from staff, and I think it's right, is the way that the LDO is currently written, the way that the CTP is currently shows, there's just no way around it. So I do think it is a larger policy issue, to Mr. Neal's point, but it is something that I think, to Mike's point, that you guys could give some.
And we don't have the option to make that decision. In the end, we can make a recommendation.
You can make any recommendation, and certainly the board takes the recommendations from the planning board seriously. This board in this meeting has recognized the cost and benefits of interconnectivity. I think that's clear. The residents have identified there are costs and benefits. There are perhaps there are other designs of qualifying collector road that haven't been considered. I don't know, but any recommendation relating to the concept plan and how it is laid out, or relating to a policy or a plan that the town has relating to anything under land development, is within your purview to make a recommendation.
I think without the connection, though, we would kind of be back to where we were last month, that it wouldn't meet the consistency of the CTP without this thoroughfare and the connections.
But in this case, we could make a recommendation saying, recommend yes, adding the buffer question.
Recommend that amendment be made to the transportation plan to
alternate
View classical ways.
classical way.
Something.
Maybe look
Of
at
course,
alternative.
the question from the board members is going to be, well, what about interconnectivity and alternate routes and all the things that the folks who have planning degrees tell us are why we make these plans?
Yeah, and I get it. Part of me's, I understand the collector. I don't necessarily see the benefit for this particular connector because of where it's located close to two others, Wheat and Old Pierce. No, Old Pierce.
Weston Ridge.
Favorite.
Hey, thank you. Averett Road. It's this one. That like you're talking a couple hundred yards, right, from a distance to. So the closest of those two collectors don't necessarily meet the benefit of what you're trying to get out of a collector. The other one that goes across the residential, I completely understand because you're buying.
Averett is an arterial.
Okay, so it's even
110
big.
foot right of way, 4 foot divided, four lane divided roadway. Ultimately, if built to that, collector is a 2 lane road. It's just wider.
Understand it's even a larger piece.
Yeah,
Again,
it's not a neighborhood street. It's the next level up.
yeah, in this case, again, I don't necessarily see the benefit of it when you have a collector that's really just feeding nothing. Right, Kavanaugh, if you're on, if coming across Kavanaugh, you go out and you go up, or you can go up and directly to Wait. You've basically created a collector in the middle of nowhere to meet a requirement. And I get it, right? Everybody's right in the sense of we met the requirement of what we're told. This is what we want for LDO. Just like we had this conversation at the beginning of the meeting, policy is something that's a speed bump. And we can take a look at that speed bump.
Right. There's something to be said for redundant roadways, because when one is blocked, you can take the other one. I think we had a situation in town recently where there was no redundant roadway.
You mean the big intersection thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, you do have a little bit. It's not as substantial as a collector because you've got the one coming across from Old Pierce. It's not optimal.
Idealized with this project, that would be through a parking lot.
Understood.
Yeah, but it would be access.
Qualified as a collector somehow.
No, it's not a collector.
Well, it's meeting the collector.
No, it's meeting a connectivity thing, but it's not meeting the collector. I'm torn. I think it's worth a closer look, but I don't know what we debate on more.
To ensure all of my notes are addressed, there were multiple comments about the pond and the location of a buffer in relation to the stormwater detention device. Are there any planning board thoughts on that concept?
I would think that there would have to be a buffer between the southern border of the property and the beginning of the stormwater retention pond. That's what makes common sense to me. I would have thought that that's what you have to do anyway, because that's part of that commercial area. So if we're going to put a buffer, that's the first thing you do, the 25 to 50 foot type 4 buffer, and then you can do whatever you guys need to do, is how I interpret things.
I mention that only because in certain instances, the flip has been done and been perceived as more attractive. Right. That is, put the body of water closer to the neighbor than the vegetation, right, than the development. The land use lawyer in me says, put the screen as close to the viewer as possible because that makes it bigger. Yep. The farther you put it away, the smaller it becomes in your vision. But those are competing ideas, and that's why I wanted to make sure you all had an opportunity to discuss it. Yeah, sorry for my voice.
I think I would agree with Derek on that. I would envision it being along the boundary line where the commercial meets the residential.
Thank you.
And then the pond.
Okay.
Even if there had to be some filling or something done.
And I think if we state the condition about the buffer saying across the entire southern border of the commercial, I think that would satisfy that.
Yep.
Yeah, and just for the neighbors in the area, that's a great point to bring up when you start talking together, is where would you want to see it? We can make a recommendation, but when you talk to the Board of Commissioners directly, if you collectively say, no, move it to the other side, that's something that they consider.
Well, I believe somebody mentioned moving the park down to where the pond is to incorporate the pond and the park together, so you're not losing that pond right in that area. So that's another consideration.
And again, that's a lot of that layout stuff I was mentioning.
Sure.
We'd love to be able to talk about that.
Yeah. And that's, like I say, that's the rezoning, that's all different.
Yeah.
That's put in for consideration.
Any other discussion on any other items on this?
No.
Hearing no other discussion, the floor will be open for a motion.
Can you flip up the
The statement,
statement?
the recommendation statement slide.
Sorry, yes, sir. Talking to my
Just
attorney.
so we can get it right.
Yeah. I don't remember the zoning.
No, that's the last month's. I didn't have a printed copy. Got it on the tablet. So I get back to the page. He's got it now.
So on screen, we have those two motions. Recall, one for the rezoning, one for the development agreement being proposed here. I believe we'd like a restatement of the, let's call it amendments or conditions to go with the recommendation from the board. I think we could take maybe some high-level topics to describe each one. We've got a lot of video here to watch and catch all the words. But if we can make that consistent, that we want to talk about classical way and such and so forth with whatever motion that you make.
I don't think we had any questions on the development agreement pieces of this.
Those are 3 modifications relating to size and side yard setback.
And that was
And
interim.
the commercial development, 50%.
Well, that's actually to.
They reverted.
That's following the ordinance rather than trying not to.
Okay, I thought you were just talking about what was changed. So.
Yep.
No, but we didn't have any.
Two about building size, one about the residential setback.
Right.
Size reduction.
So that basically, there was the 100,000 square foot storage facility limited to that one location.
100K for that use,
And then the single building,
65K for a
60,000.
grocery store, 65,000 maximum, and then the 5-foot.
That's between
single
houses
family.
that are going to be built. There was no commentary, I thought, about that.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right, I'll make a first motion. Please correct me if I miss something. Motion to recommend to the Town of Board Commissioners approval of rezoning request REZ 24-05 Atticus Woods, Waite Avenue, based on consistency with Rolesville's comprehensive plan. On condition as well, to the board making a recommendation that there be a additional condition on between the commercial zone and the residential zone on the south side of the plot to meet the standards of a level 4 buffer between the two locations. Good.
And that's the residential in Elizabeth Springs.
The commercial up here on top, and then
The Elizabeth Springs residential. Gotcha.
correct.
Okay.
Second condition.
And the second condition was, while this meets the standard for our transportation plan, that the Board of Commissioners, consider either an exception to that to limit the thoroughfare access, or consider other options around the collector plan between those two streets. Fair enough?
That's exclusive to Classical Way.
Exclusive classical way.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. Now the floor will be open for a motion for the second portion of this approval for the development agreement.
I'll make the motion as well.
All right.
Hearing no further discussion on that item, motion to recommend to the Town Board of Commissioners approval of the development agreement Atticus Woods based on consistency with the Rolesville's comprehensive plan.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, thank you all for coming out tonight. All right, on to item number 3, TA 25-10.
Yes or no?
What she said?
Yes. Okay.
So you don't need.
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess while we let the speakers sign in.
Okay.
Item number 3, TA 25-10.
Sure. So
Yeah, I think he's, no,
let me close the door.
might not heard.
Just, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. Have a go.
Okay. Item B3 is an applicant-initiated text amendment. Application number is TA-25-010. This is a modification proposed to LDO section 3.1.1 titled Townhome Building Separation Requirements. The applicant here is David Gorman with Lock 7 Development. His cohort, Gabe, is in the room this night representing the applicant. The request is to modify the residential higher R8 zoning district development standards to reduce the building separation requirement that exists for single-family attached, otherwise known as townhome buildings. The request is to change the separation, which is 30 foot currently, exclusively for either 3 or 2 unit structures, or said another way, townhome structures that have no more than 3 units within them. So a relatively small townhome building. And of note, the Town Board of Commissioners approved text amendment 2401 a little over a year ago. That was exclusively for age-restricted townhome developments. That changed the standards to allow decreased setbacks and decreased building separation, exclusively limited to 2-unit townhome buildings. So here is a clip, the blue line, so to speak, of the LDO section 3.1.1 that would include this new standard there. As you see in blue, the minimum 10-foot building separation for attached, which is the single-family attached building type and zoning use, between structures of 3 units or less. So this is where the proposed text amendment would live, right here in this table, like there. Reviewing this against the 2050 comprehensive plan as they relate to transportation, economic development, land use and housing, and parks, recreation, community character. The text amendment would facilitate flexibility for townhome developments in that they could provide diversified residential options and really exclusive to the 2-unit and 3-unit townhome structure. If those buildings could be placed closer together, it might induce a developer to go with that regime of smaller buildings, but closer to one another, as opposed to larger. And the LDO allows up to 8 townhome units in a building, which we kind of refer to as a stick. And that is one reason that we believe that the 30-foot standard of separating those buildings from one another exists. So this would allow and maybe induce smaller impact buildings of townhome units with that shorter building separation requirement. All things like building setbacks and fire code requirements for separation of buildings would still apply. This would not affect or lesser those standards. So then we have a motion here on screen. Now again, the applicant is the room if you'd like for them to come up and speak at all, or if you have any questions for staff to try to explain this applicant-initiated amendment any further.
Anyone have any questions for the applicant or staff?
So the current is 30 feet
Yes.
for anything, 2 building, 3 building, 8 building, because this is not applicable to just senior like the other one.
That's right. So it starts with the use. The use is single-family attached or townhomes.
Right.
The maximum units in any one building or stick is 8. But if you go 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, it's still a 30-foot building separation. So it's that rational, is the 30-foot standard appropriate or rational for a building that has of 2 townhome units next to a building of 2 townhome units next to a, so the 30-foot is the standard for up to 8 units in a building.
So if you have 8 and then you have 2, what's going to be between them?
That's a good question. I would say the higher requirement of 30. But between 2, and again, if this proposal were in play, 2, 3 unit townhome buildings, the separation between them would be the proposed 10-foot.
And how wide is a typical townhome unit itself? Not the whole 8 thing, just one.
That's a good question. That is variable. There's a minimum lot size for townhomes. And if you're an interior unit, you are basically, side to side.
Give me that one then.
Okay. Well, I believe the minimum lot size is 20 foot for a townhome unit.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but that's a minimum lot size, and then those interior units are 20 foot. There's no maximum.
Right.
So to your point of, could you have 3 30-foot wide townhomes in a building? That's a 90-foot building. If that's maybe part of the concern.
I'm thinking a lot from just a symmetry perspective, visually, when you look at something, you know, I would think that at least, I would think we wouldn't want to go below 20-foot standard, because if that's about the minimum as a townhome unit, then it's going to look like just that gap is there. I also worry about going that close because when we have a lot of issues in the past talking about this, you know, you've got so much space that you narrow down, and depending on the orientation and the direction of the sun, after 3 or 4 years, the sod that gets put in there when the developer builds it doesn't get rain, doesn't get sun. And then in the single family unit, you have homeowners that are responsible for that. But in a townhome, you're talking about an HOA that has to maintain that issue. And I think that becomes a larger probability of a headache for dealing with something like that. So those are my initial thoughts that cross my mind.
And I kind of looking at this, I know in Wake Forest, there's several neighborhoods that have similar things are considered townhomes. They've got a pretty good picture in the example, but they just look like larger single family homes that are actually 2 units.
Right.
And you ride through the neighborhood and you really don't even realize that it's a multifamily neighborhood.
Yeah, that's what I thought of that as well.
And to me, that having the HOA maintaining between them is almost, I think, would be better than the individual homeowners, because at least there is somebody who will be mowing and fertilizing and keeping things up.
And
Whereas
that space is communal space, not private space. So you won't have a fence separating the 10-foot, 5-foot on 5-foot with garbage cans and things of that nature to maybe.
it'll be open between the buildings.
Again, I can't speak for the future about any one developer, and any one development could be different, but with the HOA space between the buildings, it won't be the same as private property where we have 5-foot setback on this side of the property line, 5-foot setback in the buildings. And again, like just in our last rezoning case, it was approved for allowing the developer to reduce the setbacks to 5 foot on either side. So that's a 10-foot separation. But in this case, townhomes
Would go
have that
right up to
private
the,
area.
would go right up to that line, right?
Yeah.
So it would
I mean,
literally be 10
potentially.
feet.
Yeah, potentially. There is a side setback requirement for townhomes when you're the end unit,
Well, then you wouldn't have anything on the other side of you, but,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
on the interior of that,
potentially.
there is no setback from the end of a building other than the street or whatever.
Right.
Because that's what this is addressing, that space in
Yeah.
between there,
That's one of the,
right?
I kind of see it as not much different than the single family neighborhoods, like I say, where we're allowing 5 feet between houses now. That puts a 10-foot building separation. And these being only limited to 2 or 3 units, they're really more like larger, just larger single family
So it
houses.
wouldn't be, so it would only be for 2 and 3 unit buildings?
it's best to just see a maximum of 3, but yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that maybe, I heard it was gonna be I was hearing it was gonna be across the board, but for the smaller, because that was the thought I had, was that was the intention of this, is to make it look like it's a single family home community, but it's not. And that makes
Yeah.
sense to me. I'm
And
okay with that.
And like you said, if we went to a 4 unit, then we jump back to that 30-foot separation,
yes.
correct?
Yeah, that's fine. I get that.
Okay.
And if we transition from a 3 to a 4 unit, we're going to jump back to that 30-foot separation.
That's right. If you had a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 next to a 3, I know if I was reviewing the subdivision plan, I'd say no, that 30 would have to apply. But between 2, 3 unit ones, you could use the,
And that's how I would like to see it done. I would like to see it done.
My council also says, put it right.
Yeah, we will address that with the language, because that's an excellent point on interpretation, so that our planning director doesn't have to make an interpretation of what's vague. If there is a concern with regard to the overall width, that is, if a development had wide townhomes such that there were, as you mentioned, there were only 3 units in the 3 lots in the townhome unit, but they were wide, which is not common. You could, rather than regulating by number of lots, you could regulate by width of the building face.
Okay, right.
So that would eliminate that concern and still get what the developer is shooting for. And perhaps lead to more creative design ideas. But think about that.
Right.
You really don't care if they do 4 super narrow, as long as it's not too wide.
Right.
Right. Right.
Building.
In which case you've got the same
Back to a
shade situation you were concerned about, even though you only have 3 units.
I guess more like you're saying, if they went with a 60-foot wide unit and put 3 of them together, then you take up
Right.
180 foot.
And people say, what was Derek thinking? This is a terrible idea.
So maybe regulating building width is more the intent of the separation from the.
That was my understanding from staff's presentation.
Yeah. The code is currently driven by numbers of units in a building. To get you to that 30-foot separation. So this proposal was, well, if I commit to fewer units in a building, shouldn't I rationally decrease that space? And that's what spawned the applicant to ask for this. But now that we speak more about minimum lot sizes versus maximum lot sizes, which gets to maximum building width, there could be some.
We have several single-family homes with 10-foot separation, but do we require a minimum or maximum width on those? We don't, right?
Well, the lot size width minimum
Right.
is dictated by your zoning.
That's right. But there's.
And then you have a setback, and then you have a building envelope. No rule that says you have to build within it, but that's your maximum building envelope. In this case, we have minimum lot sizes for townhome units, but not maximums. And so there is, I could see the potentiality for a very wide, large building that only has 3 townhome units in it.
I kind of see it sort of self-regulating too, because
as well.
once you get over a certain size, it becomes, the cost prohibitive, and, you're building so much street, and you're better off just to do a large.
Usually townhomes
single-family
predicate
neighborhood.
towards the efficiencies of narrower frontage, and you go vertical with your square footage. And so it's, like you said,
I wouldn't
self-regulating.
be opposed to looking at a maximum if the board felt like it was necessary, but
The board
I
could
sort of feel like
recommend, the board can make a recommendation and provide a report. And that is, the concept proposed by the applicant is reasonable. However, the board did consider unintended consequence of large facade frontages of wide units, and the board may want to consider regulating it that way. Something along those lines, so that the board knows that you thought about it. I agree with you. I have seen it, but I'm thinking about the place that I saw it was in London. So I'm not sure we're quite there yet, but it is, you just don't see that sort of wide face in the market.
Thank you.
My clients are going narrower.
Any other questions, comments, discussions? All right. Hearing no further discussion, the floor will be open for a motion.
So on screen, again, we have a motion that could be spoken to, and if you can include some details about consistency or inconsistency. One that comes to mind is this could facilitate housing options that don't exist today in the LDO, and that's kind of one of the tenets of the new adopted housing plan, is to see where the LDO could free up or create new options for housing. And so this could potentially be an example of that, being consistent with the housing plan.
All right.
Well, I'll go ahead and make the recommendation, but I think before we do that, I think we're talking about 2 statements though. One is to make sure that this adjustment is only for like size to like size, anything else goes to the higher. And the second one is that we suggest or recommend that the town board of commissioners consider a maximum building width to go along with this. Is that fair?
I think other than the like size will be a maximum of 3.
Okay, maximum 3.
And
Well,
then,
That's in their petition, is a maximum of 3.
I meant between the
Yeah,
two building structures. It would be 10 foot between the like size, which is 3.
well, if it was a 2-3, it would still be 10.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would. Yeah.
So,
But a 3 against a 5-unit townhome
would
would
be
fall
the
to the
greater.
existing 30.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Michael knows what you're getting
okay.
at.
I know what you're getting
Is
at,
that
but
fair enough
we
to
want to get
say
it in the motion. Yeah, we
I
wanna make
just,
sure.
Yeah, no.
the light kind
Yeah.
makes us think it might be
That's fair,
regulated
that's
a little
fair.
more.
Okay.
All right.
All right, well, I'll motion to recommend approval of TA 2510, text amendment to LDO section 3.1.1 townhome building separation requirements to the Town Board of Commission because it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Because it's consistent with two recommendations. One that, now I already lost them. That the, I'm sorry, I just drew a freaking blank.
Unit sizes, so take the higher of the two.
The maximum of 2 to 3 units would have a distance of the same, and anything greater would assume the 30-foot existing setback. And that we recommend the Town Board of Commissioners consider a maximum building width for those 2 or 3 units structures.
All right.
And this will create housing opportunities. That's your consistent.
That would be your example.
Because it will create greater housing opportunities for developers to consider.
Right. We have,
Thank you.
we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, on to TA 25-11.
Yes, sir. Item B4 on the agenda is text amendment 25-11, another applicant initiated text amendment, this one to LDO table 6.2.2.2 regarding perimeter buffer yard requirements, a topic that came up in our last rezoning case tangentially. Same applicant as the prior text amendment, David Gorman with Lock 7 Development. This request is to modify the standards to eliminate walls and perimeter buffers between residential developments. The topic of eliminating fences and walls and perimeter buffers between residential zoning districts, which there are many of them, there's RL, RM, RH, has been a topic of discussion by the town board at some work sessions and joint work sessions, and this has also been a long topic on staff's text amendment to do and to consider list. I'll get into some of the narrative after this. This is what the text amendment would look like. This is the table 6.2.2.2 in LDO section 6.2.2.2, where perimeter buffer yards are applied based on the zoning district of properties. Vacant, developed, doesn't matter. It's about the zoning district of the properties. In blue there, you see the L added to those. So for instance, down the left-hand side in the gray, RM, adjacent on the top, blue RL. Under the current standard, it would be a type 2 buffer. That's a 15-foot dimension with plantings and a fence. The L addition would remove the fence, for instance, and just have a 15-foot buffer in the vegetative plantings that are prescribed between an RL zoning district and an RM and RL. So it's basically eliminating the fences or the walls, the hardscapes from the buffer yards.
But it doesn't change the density of the vegetation.
Nope. Not changing the physical dimension, the distance, the feet, or the numbers of plantings, the rate of plantings, et cetera.
Yeah.
Just removing the hardscapes.
I think that's good.
Huh?
I think that'd be good. To have the wall there is just not very
Yeah.
appealing and to look at, and you.
And I get that part of it, but I think the wall also acts as kind of that, deterrent for people to be so loose with property lines. I kind of feel like if you're going to drop the wall, at least increase the plantings. So there isn't as much visibility because the wall creates a visual barrier, so you're not looking at somebody's backyard.
Mhm.
If you take that wall out, but you don't have the additional plantings, then you're just staring in somebody's backyard 24/7 all year round, not just in wintertime. So I kind of feel like if you're going to take a wall away, which I agree, I think it makes sense to take that away. I think part of the compensation for that would be to add some additional plantings.
That's a possibility.
One inherent aspect of the LDO that changed from the UDO, and what we see in a lot of our older neighborhoods, which were developed between 2004 and 2021, well, some of them are still developing today, but they're subject to the UDO, is the lack of perimeter buffer yards. The LDO, all these newer developments, ones like Parker Ridge that are coming online, et cetera, they have a ring of common open space owned by the HOA that is the perimeter buffer yard. The older neighborhoods, like Elizabeth Springs, that was in our rezoning case earlier, those property lines, every property owner owns right to the back end of the subdivision and abuts the adjacent large property. There is no buffer space in their neighborhood to buffer themselves from whatever may come on the other side. And the LDO solved that by requiring a perimeter buffer yard on the outer edge or the outer ring of every residential subdivision. That means when the property adjacent to it also develops, it will also ring itself. So you would have two of these prescribed buffers. If it was RM against RL, it would be a 2, and then RL comes in against RM, it would be 2. So you'd have a 2 and a 2 buffer. That's 30 foot of space and a bunch of plantings. And as written today, 2 fences. Then you get to the properties and people want to fence their dog in. Yeah. And so they put a fence on their near their property lines. And so you have fence, 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 and the person on the other side does a fence in their backyard. So you got 4 fences within approximately 35 feet of one another. Yeah. That's a potentiality of perimeter buffers for residential having.
Yeah. And all those fences have trees down and they're busted, they're broken, and nobody wants to fix them. So, yeah.
Maintenance is another thing, but yeah.
More to the point of your example, you know, especially with dogs, for example, it's more of a reason why I would like to see additional plantings, because then you create a more opaque buffer that creates a little bit more of a go ahead.
Sorry. Recall in the last rezoning case, described or, well, sorry, I don't think we have a good image here. Yes, we do. Here we go. I wish I could zoom in. This is how buffers are planted. The property line with the adjacent property is here. You do all of the plantings and then you put the hardscape on the new development's interior side. So if you're on the opposite side, the other development, you're looking through shrubs and trees, and then the hardscape is behind all of that. It's not in front of you. And so then in this case, the private lot would start right here. And again, if that person wanted to fence in their dog, they would build a fence, and those 2 fences would be mere feet from one another. But that would be, not everybody fenced their yard. Mm-hmm. Your yard would be fenced in, but that perimeter buffer fence is not a secure fence, meaning it's a boundary 360. So it doesn't serve that purpose, if that was kind of one of the thoughts. And again, the fence is near the new subdivision's property boundaries, not the other one. So there could be an argument that the intent or the visuality of the buffer yards is never met because you can't see the screening, and the hardscape screenings are roughly, in this case, a 25 against a 25. They'd be approximately 40 foot apart from one another, with 40 feet of planted area or open space.
How are the plantings defined?
They're different. There's shrubs, there's understory, and then there's canopy trees.
So there's a mix of them to create that opacity.
Yeah, and it's a prescription every 100 foot of linear feet. Mm-hmm. So, you know, two upper story canopy, 4 understory, and then a series of shrubs per 100 foot. Yep. And so you build that out over that.
So is it a number of plantings per 100 feet? Is that what you're saying?
But let's say it's like 12 shrubs, 4 understory, 2 canopy, for instance, per 100 foot, per 100 linear foot. Yeah.
I still think I think it makes sense to increase that and let the Board of Commissioners determine whether or not they want to increase them. If they want to say 0, then they can say 0. But if we say that we recommend an increase of those plantings, then they can have the conversation as to whether they want it to be 0.
Yeah.
You know.
I personally think that the plantings we got is sufficient between, because we're only talking about where 2 residential districts join.
Right.
And you know, and I'm not opposed to eliminating the wall because it seems like it just, you know, isolates neighbors from each other. Yeah, but I think, like Mr. Ellenbarger said, if we got our plantings and then the developer behind us does it, now we've got, instead of a 15-foot vegetated berm, we end up with a 30-foot, or vegetated buffer, we end up with a 30-foot from 15 from each neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of gets your extra density in there then, because if the residential neighborhood's backing up to undeveloped property, you've got natural wooded area. And once that's developed, they're gonna do their 15-foot, so now all of a sudden you've got a 30-foot buffer separating the two neighborhoods. And they are both residential at that point in time, so it's, if you don't wanna see a neighbor, maybe the town of Rolesville isn't where you wanna be, because when you get in the town limits, you're gonna have smaller lots anyways.
But the only exception, I think, in this case, what I would look at is a high going next to a low. And the only reason I'll say that is because nobody's coming to us. When's the last time somebody's come to us to ask for low residential zoning? Almost never.
Didn't the chart?
But you have a lot of older
Didn't the chart
homes.
have a higher density? I mean, higher buffer? Where the high? Because we had the chart.
No, the
'cause
chart.
it had a 1, 2, and 3 as you go from low to high.
But if the way I look at that is if the the zoning district of the adjacent property is RL, so like my house.
Yeah.
And then somebody wants to put an RH in my backyard, right? Then they could drop the fence.
They have to do it. Yes.
But they have a higher.
That's what the
buffer.
amendment is proposing. Currently today it'd be 25 foot.
Understood.
Fence.
But nobody's coming in with the RL. So everybody's coming with M or high, right? So you've got new pieces. They're all built that way, closer together. Versus a lot of the properties that are sitting in the ETJs, which are multiple acre, 1, 2 acre, 3 acre, 4 acre, whatever it is. And all of a sudden I got what looks like an apartment complex next door.
It is important.
Again, right? So all of a sudden me, who has my nice big roof, and there's the neighbor I don't have to see who's 115 yards away, bang, I see these houses, like a whole block of homes that they're all there, right? So it blows up that little bit of a rural nature than some of the older homes, especially as you get out more into the RTJ. You're going to have some older homes that exist today inside of the pieces of this. So the only one I would bark at or balk at would be if somebody wants to put RH directly next to an existing RL.
Okay. So this one
They
here,
have
you
the
would.
higher buffer at that point in time of the 1, 2, and 3 buffers. Because isn't that what your chart's showing? The 1 buffer.
So RH coming in and developing against an RL would do a 3 today. It's 25 foot with a wall. The L would remove the wall part.
I'm saying the RL to the RL, it has the buffer type number 1, which is what, 10 feet?
Yes, and that L is a black L that's in there. So
Yeah,
the L means
But then when we go
no-
down, but I'm saying the 1 is what, 10 feet, and it goes to 15 and 25, so as
Going
we,
this way, right? Because the RH is okay, which is the zoning? The zoning of it is down or up or across?
I think it goes either way.
adjacent properties in blue. So
Okay. So
your
if my existing property is an RH, and my existing property is an RL, and if you want to put an RH next to it,
Be a 3L.
Type 3 with no
Figures
wall.
it'd be a type 3 with a wall,
yes,
Current.
Or a fence.
current, or fence,
And this would just remove the wall and the fence.
concrete, steel.
So they'd still have the higher type buffer, but just wouldn't have to put the wall or the fence up.
Which they're an eyesore anyway.
type 3 has a wall, type 2 has a fence, type 4 has a wall. Type 4 has that berm and wall.
Berm and.
Right, that's
So they would it,
Right.
type, but
Right.
type
Type
3
1 is
doesn't.
nothing, type 2 is a fence, type 3 is a wall, type 4 is a berm and wall,
Mhm.
and 8 foot. So that's how the hierarchy goes in the intensity of the buffers. Oops, sorry. So again,
So right
to
now,
the example, you could get zoned RH, which allows you to do townhomes. That would be a type 3. This amendment would simply delete the wall from that buffer.
Yeah.
Because they are 2 forms of residential, just vastly different densities.
I agree.
That's the gist of where the applicant's coming from. And I think what a lot of projects have shown us when we do these subdivisions is the thousands of linear feet of wall that we're talking about building on the outer perimeter of some projects. And that's a very high cost.
Yeah.
So I think the applicants would love this, and I think they would take additional plantings as the equivalent of deleting the hardscape as this proposal here. So if that's a proposal that the board would like to make, I I think the development community would welcome that. Because the
Yeah.
cost to put in a
So remove the
physical
wall
wall,
and add additional plantings
thousands of
per
feet.
100 feet.
it's a maintenance, it's an everything. It's a big deal.
All
All
right.
right, you can flip the slide.
Would you like to hear from the applicant?
Sure. Come on up.
Been here this long, you might as well.
Yeah.
Get your 2 cents with it,
I
right?
appreciate it. Good evening, guys. My name is Gabe Cunningham. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Block 7 Development. Appreciate your time this morning. And I hear your concern with increasing the landscape buffer. The core thesis of this text amendment is to remove the wall from the current buffers that are in place. It's not looking to decrease the intensity of the length of the buffer, rather than to just remove that additional cost that is many times passed down to the home buyers. So we're just looking to take that wall out of what is required for those buffers. I'm happy to address any questions you guys have.
All right. Anyone have any questions for the applicant?
No.
All right. Well,
Cool.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone have any other questions for staff? Any discussions? Any
Flip
further
the slide to
discussions?
the motion.
Sorry.
All right. Well, no
If
further.
it helps, and our chairman can speak to this, every town struggles with a different recipe for that table. And some of them are super creative. You can pretty much trade wall for intensity, for width, for vertical, for evergreen. Choose what you want. Architects, landscape architects love it because you can create what works for your project. It's just a tremendous amount of work at this level to bring that to reality. So hearing the discussion, if it helps, every city goes through a lot of trading that out. How much is it worth? What is 10 more feet worth versus 5 bushes, right? So it's a trade-off.
Thanks.
So it sounds like there's a little bit of a hint there. Like instead of having it replacing the wall, we have an option of removing the wall and increasing plantings.
I think this is a potential of a good starter point for a greater look at the buffer yard table. If the board thinks that this is a logical change, you could support it, or you could support it again with I think the board should consider adding some kind of quid pro quo. You remove the wall, you do some more plantings type of thing, and we could work on that. But as I said, staff has identified this 2 to 3 years ago as a real problem with development because it raises the cost of development. It scares off some developers just by the sheer thousands of feet of linear feet of wall, things of that nature. And we don't know if the intent is really being met by separating, putting up walls between communities.
Back-to-back walls was the initial concern for the prior planning director.
Yeah.
That is the quickest fix was what could we do to eliminate 2 walls? Because I mean, there's only damage from that. There's no real upside.
Okay. All right. If there's no other discussion, floor is
So we
open.
want to remove it, or do we make it an option?
I'd
Or quid
remove it.
pro quo, as you could say.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be in favor of removing the wall and just recommending additional plantings.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I think.
All right. Good.
All right.
Would the board be able to give maybe a percentage, which would be give staff something numerically?
Say per 100 feet, as everything's measured in 100 feet.
It's
so
quantities per
more-
100 linear
More
feet. yes.
more density per 100 feet to remove the wall, something like that.
Increase it by 25%.
25%. Yeah,
I was
that's
throwing
okay.
out 25%
Yeah. Okay.
at all levels.
Make it easier on math.
All right.
And round up.
So the L would basically be the option: remove the hardscape wall, but upsize 25% the
25%
landscape.
density per 100
Yeah.
feet.
We saying exactly 25%, or we saying at least 25%?
At least.
Or up?
At least.
I would say at
But-
least.
But you guys, some numbers are gonna be small, right? If I have two vertical canopies and I say 25%, I don't hit the number. So it's 25% or higher.
The law sets the floor.
All right. Someone want to make a motion
Sure, I'll do it. Why not? I'll try it this time and not fumble it. Motion to recommend approval, TA-25-11 LDO text amendment to LDO table 6222, required perimeter buffer by district to the Town Board of Commissioners because it is consistent with the comprehensive plan, with an additional recommendation that the Town Board consider adding additional plantings at a rate of 25% at all levels per 100 feet because it will increase the creativeness for developers.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. All righty. On to the communications. Planning Director's report.
Sure. Just a few, I guess, updates on some development activity recently, and the town's GovWell platform. So we're in the third month of using GovWell, which is an online portal type platform that so many communities have. We did it in October, November, now December. Coincidentally, or maybe beneficial to us, the rate of application submittals has really dipped this last quarter. We are seeing a lot more final approvals occurring on construction drawings and final subdivisions and things of that nature, which means building permits are going to go greater. So if you remember some of the past presentations, I gave you even a picture of a wave. Well, we're in a wave right now. Obviously, I've been in front of you quite frequently with rezonings. 2 this evening. We're going to have, I think, 1 or 2 more in January, et cetera. So we're in a entitlement rezoning period, and we're in a construction wave. But right now, we're just in a little bit of a lull on just pure applications. Site developments have dropped down as well, but we've also approved a host of them. 2 in Walbrook for a Chipotle and a Chase Bank recently, et cetera. The town's gotten to final approval on preliminary subdivision for a project known as Preserve at Moody Farm and Tucker Wilkins. They're all down south of in the area of the high school down there on the Rolesville Road corridor. The age-restricted project that the town has, Merit, that achieved construction drawing approval. So that will be going to construction sometime probably early next year.
More blasting. Oh, God.
You live down that way?
Oh, God.
Yes, there's a lot of rock there. Trying to think of some other highlights. We had Scooter's Coffee grand opening just a few weeks ago. That was a big monumental achievement for the permitting end. And again, we're having openings in Cobblestone and Walbrook quite frequently now. Some of those tenants are really fleshing out and opening up there. So that's the big picture with the development volumes right now. And would like to just mention that I believe this is Mr. Verstegen's last meeting with us. So we wanted to thank him for his years of service on the planning board. Prior to that, Parab for even more years. So I just wanted to thank you and then maybe have the chair say a word or two.
Yeah, we appreciate your time. You served on the board. We'll miss you.
Appreciate you.
We'll, I guess staff have to get to work too. We've got two seats to fill now. So,
Your son, right?
Yep. And so how many years has it been?
Thank you, Derek.
Well, we appreciate your service.
That was fast.
All right.
That was fast 3 years.
All right. We do
concludes my
appreciate your
report.
service. All right. That all you have?
That concludes my
All
report.
righty. Town attorney's report.
Thank you all for tolerating me this evening. I'm suspecting that Aaron knew this meeting might run long. On a more serious note, as we think about that perimeter buffer issue and how it ties back into other cases, North Carolina, for the past 8 to 10 years, has had permit choice. So if the applicant does not adopt a condition requiring a wall, the adoption of a text amendment per the latest application would cause that requirement that the neighbors heard was a requirement to go away in Rolesville. And the applicant, even though they had been truthful at our meeting, by the time they got to development, would not need to build a wall. So keep that in mind as this trickles through. Getting a condition would lock it in, regardless of what happens on perimeter buffer. That occurred to me after you had concluded that idea. But that is all I have, and Aaron will be back here in January.
All right. Well, we appreciate it.
Merry Christmas.
Okay. move on to other business. We first like to welcome our new board liaison. Hope you enjoyed this good long meeting tonight. All right. Yes, sir. Anyone else have any other business?
Well, technically, this is my last night too, because I haven't been informed that if I've been appointed to serve again, so this would be my last night as well.
By law, you serve until you are replaced. Same for Mr. Verstegen.
There you go.
You're not getting off that easy.
There you go.
I can give an update on that. I think I can do that. We have received applicants. I am reviewing them and have reviewed them, and we'll start making decisions within the next week or two. So you'll be hearing some phone calls, emails, and we'll move forward as quickly as can before the next meeting. But we have progressed with that, so thank you.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got one more thing. Again, I appreciate you guys, good debates and good conversations, so I do appreciate my time here. I do want to leave you with one suggestion or one challenge, I guess, for you guys as a board and our new liaison over there. Because two of those cases tonight that we saw really opened up a question for how we do park and park donations. And I think this is becoming a bigger issue because we don't have any money in capital budget for park land acquisition anymore. So if this is going to be the way we're piecemealing parkland together in the community, although I don't agree with that, but if there's no money in capital budget for parks and recreation to acquire land, and this is the only way, we need to develop something that incentivizes the developer to do it the right way. Like I was complaining about the one tonight, instead of having it tucked in a corner on useless land, bringing it forward. So I challenge you guys to figure out a way to create a policy, an ordinance, a text amendment, something to make it so that these developers have an incentive to give us land that we can actually use in a place we can actually use that doesn't get into that private public kind of battle that both of these tonight encountered. Now, the second one moved it, maybe not in the best place, but they did move it because it was interior, right? But I think we really need to challenge ourselves to figure out a way to make that work if the town's not going to budget, particularly if the town's not going to budget for land acquisition. So I would really like to see you guys work on that as I leave. But I think it's a very important thing for us to look at.
We'll note that, and I know for me personally, I've always kind of relied on the TRC because it goes to the Parks and Rec staff for them to kind of weed out those the locations they really like it, because I think that's their opportunity to kind of give their wish list. And it may be something that the town could relay to the Parks and Rec board.
I've served on that, and there's no teeth there. That's the problem with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and even when we had open space and greenway, there was no teeth. There was nothing that we can say, this is what has to happen. And that's what I'm suggesting we figure out. Figure out a way to make it so that if we're going to do that, that they have to meet some criteria, like it has to be made for, access from a main public road, not from an interior road. A greenway has to be coming from there to there, something that makes it so that there's something to work with.
Right. The staff is struggling with TRC because we don't have a policy document. Think about the comprehensive transportation plan and the greenway plan. You all have something as a foundation to guide the development community as to how to design it. And we spent some time this week looking at it. There isn't anything to guide dedication of parkland. So even beyond the incentive idea, which sounds like that could be interesting, right now you cannot find anything in Rolesville that says you should dedicate parkland. That's just not a thing at all. These are just pieces of candy that have been offered to secure your support. But as a technical review item, Parks and Rec doesn't have anything technical they can request. Mm-hmm. Everyone else in that room, as you know, has a technical requirement. Parks and Rec does not.
So is that something that we need to look at
that would be a planning board? That'd be a planning board item that would come back to you from staff and Parks and Rec staff, talking to you about what might make sense to adopt.
Would that be like a park plan for kind of a wish list of dedication areas, or?
I'm not sure. I don't know that
Well, they have that already. There's already a map of the town and the ETJ and the surrounding area that they've quadrated into 4 sections saying, we need parkland over here, we need parkland over here for every so many houses. But they have no way of making that happen, especially with no capital budget.
It likely would need to be either in the LDO or in our Greenway plan. Something along those lines would be my guess. I have not considered it before just now. But in order for Parks and Rec to have something, I know there has been discussion in the past about the public-private piece and whether we currently do require certain amounts of open space and parkland. You could imagine, we're freelancing this right now. You could imagine incentivizing the developer to convert the private requirement to the public, and they get 1.25 credit, right? So, whatever. You could imagine something where the incentive would be, or you can satisfy your private obligation by making a public dedication. In which case, then you would have a hook for where, because it would be the standard of what the LDO currently says for whatever that park is. Maybe that's the easiest way to do it.
Is that, would a density bonus be an incentive type of?
Right. You could have it be that. That is, you still make all your private, but if you provide parkland, you get a density bonus.
5 acres or whatever you get. Yeah.
Whatever.
And I would suggest some minimum acreage too that we can actually do something with as well.
The LDO already does credit dedicated land as acreage. Apparently in the UDO, that wasn't the case. So if you gave the town land, your site got smaller and you could build less, which that was not a good incentive.
All right. Yeah, that's a duly noted.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Any other business?
I got one now.
All right. Go ahead.
Town attorney and I were talking at the break. Both of us kind of agreed that the one Atticus Ridge really wasn't the mixed use, right? It was a commercial zone and it was a residential zone. But the way that we currently have it written, there's not a restriction around how you would design a mixed use community. Right? You literally had big piece of commercial, big piece of residential, versus having it. You could put pieces in the center. You can mix your commercial around. You can build up. But because of the way that that's written, that met the condition of what we're looking for, and I don't think that's the spirit of what we're looking for with a mixed use community. Okay, that's not what it's supposed to be. They could have come in easily and made 2 different zoning laws. So I think the ask to staff is go investigate other towns and how they've built some of their mixed use communities and what restrictions and how they can design that, and then bring it back so we can have a greater discussion around what it should look like versus what we have today.
And that's kind of what I was asking, because it looked to me, I didn't quite understand how you had such a defined break between commercial and residential all in one zone.
But if you read the zone ordinance,
right,
it's allowed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's I don't recall us seeing something like it presented like this before, and that's what was throwing me off a little bit earlier tonight.
Right. And in the case if you create one that and they came in and asked for that zone, show me that you're meeting the requirements of the zone by where you're putting your stuff.
Right.
And this, otherwise it would have been kicked back and said, no, you got to come back with 2 different zones.
Right. Because if this falls through, then that commercial could be anywhere inside that piece of property.
The applicant characterized it well by saying horizontally mixed use. And that's exactly what it is. And correct, there's no teeth to make it integrated to some level, like center node of commercial surrounded by residential. All of those wouldn't might be in your mind's eye. The staff can't enforce that. The design is on theirs. I can tell you this project, we went back and forth whether the NC district was the appropriate zoning district for what they wanted to develop. Self-storage in the corner, commercial at the hard corner of those 2 major roadways, the bulk of it residential. It all fell down to development standards in this. So that is their choice to request the NC district. To get at the YNC, that's the Y. All the development standards worked well enough. Plus the ability to do the development agreement option, which they're exercising. So it's a combination of things. So it's very beneficial to that project to go the NC district route, as opposed to a residential district for the residential and a like general commercial for the general commercial area. So
I guess it's something we can look at in the future.
Sure.
In a mixed use, could we limit
Through-
the size of the commercial component of a mixed use?
there's the sky's the limit. I think through seeing these projects get approved, get built, constructed, and go, wow, that didn't come out the way I thought it would. You learn, and then you go and you tweak the standards and you say, how can we get the goal to actually come to fruition
But I guess
versus giving such latitude.
Walbrook though is that considered a mixed use project as well, or?
It is, but it kind of came in under the UDO prior to it's general commercial zoning with a lot of voluntary options, if you will, committing to kind of the land.
I think that went two separate. They're talking about with the townhomes to the left and then.
You kind of get the same thing going on, big area residential, big area commercial.
Yeah, and if you look at Walbrook, you could say is kind of segmented. All the residential's over there and all the commercial's over here. It's anchored by a grocery store, outlots all around it, et cetera, on both sides of the street. So after saying that, no, I really don't consider Walbrook a mixed-use development. Cobblestone would be with an integrated vertical mix in half of their buildings, et cetera. Not every building is mixed use, but the sum of it is.
Yeah, but I see Atticus almost more like a Walbrook because they're going to have a big area of residential and big area of.
Or historically, you have a neighborhood that leaves out 10, 15 acres at the frontage on the major highway, and then the commercial comes later. We all know the rooftops leave before commercial. And so this project is just committing to that timing of development, which the applicant has brought forth, understanding that the history of this property was, if you don't deliver commercial, the answer is no. So that's another reason for the NC.
I'm thinking 401 South, right? If you go down 401 right before the 495,
Yeah.
you drive in there, there's a bunch of townhomes, and then there's a couple restaurants, so that to me becomes more mixed use because you're putting the commercial intermixed with the residential, so you can kind of mix and match and push it where you want to go. Cobblestone is commercial, whatever the downtown district though, it's a little different, yeah.
Which is a mixed.
Which is a mixed district. So yeah, you could potentially say, here's your option. You can go vertical. Like somebody wanted to buy the property, although they actually zoned it by the ABC store. Hey, I got a little place. I'm going to put a couple townhomes, but the bottom level is going to be some stores and shops. Perfect. That's a mixed use, right? Type of piece. But the way that was done was not really mixed use.
All right. Any?
One more thing, please.
Did we hit 10 o'clock yet?
Yeah, we're getting there. This chicken thing. I'm sorry. There is a request by a few of the citizens for chickens to be in their backyards, no roosters. I think no more than 10, and it has to go through the planning board first. I'm going to be recommending Commissioner Jennifer Burnett to take the lead. I'll be working with her, but I needed to put it back on your radar because I know it's going to come out before you guys as well too, and so you just need to know it's coming, and citizens are asking about it. So I want you to be very much so in the know.
What I'll say to you all is if you haven't done your research, ducks are better than chickens. They're cleaner, quiet, and better animals for eggs. If the purpose is for eggs, then ducks are better.
Get you a couple guinea hens.
There's also a request for rabbits.
Rabbits
so
as well,
urban chickens and urban rabbits.
No roosters, just urban chickens.
Urban
and
ducks.
Urban hens and
urban
rabbits.
hens and rabbits. It will come back before you. It is being asked. So I just want you to be in the know.
Personal use only.
All right.
I feel somewhat dictated by, like, some of the HOAs will dictate.
That's fine.
Right.
Are we talking in a residential area, or are we talking townhome?
Good question.
We'll
Frank.
leave that to the
We're gonna
planning
leave that
board.
to we're gonna let you guys decide that.
Lot to think about.
It's
All right.
a lot.
Anyone have any other business? Okay, I would say we're open for a motion for adjournment.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.